what's going on here in this state is going on across the country, where they're really trying to separate and divide us. And so we have a great lineup of speakers, attorneys, public adjusters, contractors that you're going to hear from over the next few days. We want to make it interactive. The speakers have their presentations, but please ask questions. We want to fix the problem. We're here to try to mend the fracture and bring everybody together. So thank you very much. We created PPA to really give back and try to extend the education within the community. And so we're excited to have everybody here today. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. As you look around the room, the seats will fill in. There's people coming in from all over the United States that will be here. There's several big, large law groups that have not made it in yet. And then you'll see people come and go as we're moving through the conference because we all have everyday lives. So you'll have some people that will be here today, some people that won't be here this morning. For instance, Chip will be in this morning, but he double booked. So if you want to get with those people, make sure that you catch them before they leave, because not everybody's going to be here the full time and some people won't be here till tomorrow. So make sure that you pay attention to what's going on with the people that you want to get with and that you catch them before they leave. Thank you so much for coming out, and we're going to get this conference started.
Thank you, veterans, for being here. Thank all the veterans. Our first speaker is going to be Vince Perry, a commercial claims advocate. Vince has kind of been leading the industry here a while with his YouTube media content, and he's got a new course out, which I'm going to tell him I'm going to order, and I can't wait to read through it. Yeah, you're good.
I get a round of applause. All right, guys, how we doing? Everybody okay? Is everybody awake? It seems like it's very early in the morning. Nobody's talking. Nobody's saying anything. Can we get like, let's see, on the count of three. Stand up, turn around. We're not going to have everybody stand up, but one of my favorite wrestlers of all time is Ric Flair. So on the count of three, can I get a big woo? 1, 2, 3, woo! Pretty good. All right, so let's get this party started. I'm the first to speak, so let's see how this goes. But who here knows or who I am and like the YouTube channel and stuff like that? All right. Who doesn't know? Who's never seen me before ever? And they're just like, who the hell is this guy acting like an idiot up here? Okay, Danny, all right, you too. All right. So the reason why I asked that is because I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, tell you a little bit about my story, and sort of how I ended up here today, being able to speak to you fine people. I've been a public adjuster since 2009, mainly in Florida. Before that, in 2008, I was actually an adjuster for State Farm. Obviously, that only lasted 1 year. Because frankly, State Farm is not the greatest company to work for. I didn't like for people to tell me when to eat, when to take a break, when to go to the bathroom, when to have lunch, and when to do all that stuff. So I decided to forego that and become a full-time public adjuster. So since 2009, I've been a PA. My first year, I worked for a company that it was working out okay, but at the end of the year, they asked me to sign a non-compete. And if you are a public adjusting firm that requires non-competes, well, that's fine, but I personally don't agree with them. I'm not crazy about that. So when he asked me to sign it after a year, I said, no, I'm leaving, so I left. I wasn't ready to start my own firm yet, so I decided to work for another firm, and I was only going to be there for about a year. But after about a year, I became so, connected to the owner of the company. He became a mentor to me, and 1 year ended up being about 10 years. And I was with Key Biscayne Claim Adjusters in Miami, Florida for just about 10 years, and it worked out great. It was fantastic. I just didn't have any interest in going out on my own. But then, I got to a point where the social media thing started, and I'm going to explain that a little bit, and it was the right time for me to eventually go out on my own. We're still very good friends. We speak almost on a daily basis, and I decided because he was doing something else, I had the social media thing going, to start my own firm. So what I want to ask you guys, with a raise of hands, I'm going to say, first I'm going to bring up the two options of what you guys want me to talk about, and we'll see if we talk about them. So the first thing that we can talk about is how I was able to sort of establish a social media presence from 0 subscribers on YouTube to just about over 6,000 subscribers. One of the top influencers, I think, in the public adjusting sphere. If you could raise your hand, not yet, if you want me to talk about that, or if you want me to talk about how I've been able to build Elite Resolutions, my public adjusting firm, basically from nothing to over $1 million in revenue in just less than 2 years. If you want me to talk about social media, raise your hand. person. If you want to talk about building the business, raise your hand. Wow, okay, well, it doesn't matter because we're going to talk about both. So what happened was, basically, I'm going to talk about social media because I think it's important, because it's not just about getting more claims. What happens with social media, when you establish yourself as an expert in the industry, it's a game changer. It opens up the door to so many different things. I would not be standing here today speaking to you guys if it wasn't for the social media presence. Because by doing so, you establish yourself as an expert in the industry. People from all over the country, because we live in a new day and age now, where social media is king, it is free, and it can ultimately get you more claims, and again, establish yourself as an expert in the industry. So basically what I want to teach you guys, and I want you to write down notes, because all of you guys should be doing this stuff no matter what. Whether you like social media or whether you don't like social media, I think like people say all the time, it is what it is, and you got to deal with it. The way I was able to start YouTube was basically, I actually had a travel channel with my wife. You guys could look it up one day if you like. It's still there, Make It Work and Travel. Wasn't a very successful YouTube channel, but it was practice. The reason why we started a travel channel was because, believe it or not, I actually got a little tired of public adjusting. I didn't really want to do it anymore. And I was also teaching tennis, and I was really bored of that as well. So we had gone on a trip to Thailand for 1 or 2 months. After the trip, I was like, I was doing some photography, doing some videos. I was like, this is something that I'm really interested in. Fast forward 3 years, 2, 3 years later, we decided that we wanted to do it again. But this time it was going to be for 6 months across South America. This is at the beginning of 2017. So for 1 year, we literally saved money to support ourselves, to not work for 6 months, have enough income to sustain ourselves, and have money for when we got back, and have enough money for bills while we were gone. So we did it, 2000, I think it was around, when did we leave? I don't know, like around August or so, and we left. And we started in Cuba, and we went to Mexico. And while in Mexico, I had told my wife before we left, I said, the only thing that could stop this trip is if we get a hurricane. Because it's 2017, I've been an adjuster since 2009, and for those of you that don't know, we didn't have a single hurricane hit Florida. I think there was one that hit Tallahassee or something. We really didn't have a single hurricane that hit Florida until 2017. So we're there in Mexico, and then guess what comes in? Hurricane Irma, right? Hurricane Irma rolls in, and our 6-month vacation gets cut short to about 1.5 months. So we come back. I'm working Irma. Irma's crazy. It's fantastic. With just a bunch of claims. Honestly, nothing like Ian, but still very, very intense. And I start to still think, how can I get this YouTube channel off the ground? I'm still thinking about the travel channel, how I can get it off the ground. How can I make money doing the travel channel? Should I sell photography? Should I do something? Should I sell photography courses? What should I do? Then I want you to write this down. Gary Vee, Crushing It, fantastic book. Also, another book that you guys should read is The 4-Hour Workweek. How can I turn the service of public adjusting into a product? And what Tim Ferriss says is you write a book, you do a course, you sell something that takes your knowledge and sell it online. Still didn't click for me. Then I read Gary Vee's book, Crushing It. He talks about whatever it is that you know, give it away for free. Whatever it is that you know, give it away for free. Even if it's the secrets. I still get messages, why are you giving away all these secrets? Because people come to me for more secrets. By giving away all the secrets, I'm the guy that knows all the secrets. I'm the guy that's the quote-unquote expert, so I get messages all the time, and people come to me for more secrets, and come to me for consulting, come to me to purchase my course, and come to me to purchase my book, and so on and so forth. So, I decided to, okay, well, if I have a travel channel, let's start a YouTube channel for public adjusting. And again, one thing I want to tell you guys is persistence. I'm finally finished. I can't believe it took me this long. I'm an avid book reader, but I finally just finished Think and Grow Rich. And one of the chapters in Think and Grow Rich is persistence. You gotta have persistence. If you guys at all want to establish any kind of social media presence, you have to be persistent. Everyone, believe it or not, no matter what, whether they have millions of followers or 100 followers or 1,000 followers, all started with 0. You have to be persistent in your pursuit of trying to gain the following and establish yourself as an expert in the industry. Started with zero YouTube subscribers, and now we're just over 6,000 YouTube subscribers, about 5,000 or 6,000 followers on Instagram, and I mean, yeah, I get a lot of claims and I get a lot of stuff just based on social media. Well, the reason why I want to talk about both is it's because of the social media presence that allowed me to start my own public adjusting firm. Because like I said, it's not just about getting more claims. It's not just about increasing your revenue. It's about the opportunities that present themselves by establishing yourself as an expert in the industry. Because by now starting my own public adjusting firm, which I'm going to tell you about how we've been able to do it, recruiting is off the charts. A lot of public adjusters want to come work for me because of what they see on social media. So to continue to help you guys with social media, I'll backtrack real quick. If you guys are interested in all, here's some of the tips that I'm going to give you. If you want to start a YouTube channel, you have to be consistent. You have to post at least once per week. You have to either do every day, once a week, once a month, or once every 2 weeks. But it has to be consistent. If you're at all interested in starting a YouTube channel, it has to be the same time every week or the same day every month. That's the most important thing with YouTube. If you're trying to get prevalent on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram, you got to post once a day. And you've got 4 options. A lot of people are like, I'm not going to post once a day. You have 4 options on how you want to post. Okay, it's the way I always thought about it. You're either going to post a photo, you're going to post a video, you're going to write something, or you're going to share a news article. I would come at like 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, and be like, oh no, I didn't post anything. I would just literally Google search water damage Florida. And whatever news article that came up, I would just share that article. So at least I had some kind of post that I had, you know? But posting, there's a lot of people in here that I'm looking at that are pretty prevalent on social media as well, and they do a great job at it. You just gotta be consistent. You gotta post. And there's a lot of opportunities that come with it. A lot of opportunities. We're not living in a day and age where social media is just stupid and it's for kids. I mean, I think we've heard this before, but you gotta do it. So with business building, we've been able to build now elite resolutions from pretty much nothing. It was just myself, obviously. I was able to hire an admin, and now we've got about 19 people that work at elite resolutions. So one thing that I want to tell you guys that's very important is the hiring process, and I'll tell you about our hiring process. Our hiring process is basically any person that wants to come work at elite resolutions has to fill out an application. In that application, they have to say, they have to describe how they feel about all of our core values and also answer some more questions as well. The next thing they have to do is they have to submit a resume. And then the last thing they have to do is they have to complete 2 assessments. The 2 assessments that everyone is given, no matter what, I don't care who it is, I even gave it to my accountant and to my financial advisor, is the culture index and the CCAT. Okay? Culture index really talks about the personality. So if I'm looking for a public adjuster, I want him to be a little bit more sales, more autonomous, more social, and have the autonomy to really get out there and get after it. But if I'm looking for an administrative position, I don't really need that sales, social, autonomy to get out there and get after it. I need more of an attention to detail. I need people who are fast-paced. And these charts do that for me. The CCAT is like an intelligence chart, okay? And the higher the CCAT is, the better it's going to be for admin, is what I'm looking for. And if you guys ever look into the CCAT, for the admin position, we don't really take anybody less than a 70 or so. Anything higher than that is good for me. For the public adjuster role, which is like a sales role, we obviously go a little bit lower than that, as long as they are out there selling and doing what they got to do. If you guys have your own firm, or if you're thinking about your own firm, the first 2 books that you have to read, number 1 is E-Myth Revisited. You have to get E-Myth Revisited. That's going to basically teach you about the importance of writing down all of your processes. You have to write down your processes to a point where you can take and build an operations manual, give it to somebody who knows nothing about public adjusting, and they can take it and run with it. We're not even there yet, but we're constantly building our processes. Because when you start hiring new people, instead of you having to sit down and train them, which you should still do, but spend a lot of time training, you can just give them these processes and they can take it and run. The next book that you have to read is Traction. Traction was written by Gino Wickman, who created the EOS system, Entrepreneurial Operating System. The beauty about that is it keeps you in check. Most of us here are entrepreneurs, and I know that we're all over the place. And we've got ideas coming left and right, and we want to turn right, and we want to turn left, and we want to go this way, that way. The beauty about the EOS system, it really makes you focus and hunker down on your 10-year goals, on your 3-year goals, on your quarterly goals or your 3-month goals, and then your weekly scorecard. Because once you set that quarterly goal, you have to stick with it. Because I know I'm guilty. I could think of a 3-month goal, and then 2 weeks later, I want to think of another one. Or I want to think of something else. It happens all the time. But this leads you to try to stick with your 3-month goals. Weekly scorecard, I've talked about this on YouTube before. Weekly scorecard is we keep track of number of claims signed, number of claims closed, settlement amounts, estimate amounts, and revenue. It's good to keep track of all this stuff, because then you see what your close rate is based on how much you sign. You can see how much you're settling for based on what your estimate amount is, and obviously your overall revenue. These are things that I believe that have helped us really grow. So like I said, about 19 people right now. We've got about 12 people that work at Elite Resolutions alone, and about 6 people that work for Commercial Claims Advocate. That's another thing I'm going to recommend if you do social media. If you really want to go all in on it, hire help. Hire help. And if you can get anything out of this presentation, I'm going to coin a phrase from Dan Sullivan, who created Strategic Coach, which I am a part of. It's a coaching workshop. It's fantastic. He wrote a book called Who, Not How. Whenever you guys think of an idea, or you want to implement something, or you want to do something, instead of thinking about how to do it, think about who can help you do it, or who can do it for you, or who can help you implement it. That's why we have 19 people now working. It's growing very, very fast. And I think we're doing pretty good. But, I mean, that's all I've got. I kind of prepared that presentation yesterday. I hope you guys got something out of it. Any questions? Culture Index. Culture Index and CCAP. Yes, Steve?
If you could go back in time, what would you change from what you've done in the last couple of weeks? What have you learned?
What have I learned? The biggest thing that I've learned is it's people. I think what Marcus Lemonis talks about in the show is people, process, and product. To me, people is the most important thing. The people that you surround yourself in your business, to me, are extremely important. Jack and I were talking about the other day about hiring and firing fast. That's also very important. That's something that I've learned. You do have to fire fast, because you end up getting some people who just probably shouldn't be there. But the people in your company are so freaking important. You got to treat them with respect, treat them like adults, and if you find the right people, it's called the right person for the right seat. Right people, right seat, I think is what it's called. Right people, right seat. Because that's the other thing, right? EOS will help you with setting up your entire organization. At the top is your visionary. This is the person who needs to see the vision of the company 10 years from now. Underneath is your integrator. The integrator basically implements everything that the visionary envisions of the company and implements it into processes. We just hired one, which is like, now we're going to go probably next level. And then underneath that, you've got your finance, you've got your marketing, you could have your sales, and then you have your operations. And you have to put managers into all of these roles. If you're able to set these people up into all of these roles, you have to really look, and you have to see, do they get it, do they want it, do they have the capacity to do it? That's also you learn in EOS. Get it? Do they get the position? Do they want the position? And do they have the capacity to actually complete the roles that need to be completed? If any of those answers are no, then you don't have the right person in the right seat. So it's not just, and then maybe they're not bad, maybe they're just better off in a different seat. But the people in your organization, treating them with respect, treating them like adults, and putting them in a place that they can succeed. The reason why we give the 2 assessments, which after we make the hire, I give them a 3rd assessment called the Strength Finder. Strength Finder is the last assessment that I give. Because what happens if you are in a role and it's suiting your strengths and your ability? We have one girl who, I swear, I don't even have her on the phone. Because just her talking to people, it like just freaks her out and she just can't do it. And she just hates people when she keeps talking. But if I ask her to do something, if I send her a text right now, I guarantee it'll be done within the next 5 minutes. So that's her role. That's what she's good at. I don't put her on the phones. I don't put her as a public adjuster. She's just administrating, and she's very high attention to detail. She's able to do it. If you put people in the right role for what they're suited, what they're strength, what they're strong in, not only are they going to do a great job, but they're going to be happy. Because if you're doing something that you're not good at, or if you're doing something you don't feel comfortable with, you're going to be unhappy. So it builds a happy company. A happy company is good. Yeah?
Your assessments, did you build those for being in the industry, or did you take samples?
Yeah, so I have my own personal coach. Another thing I was gonna tell you is coaching is very important. If you guys are any athletes, you got a coach, right? It's very important in business to have a coach. I have my own personal coach that taught me the assessments, how to read the assessments. Because the culture index is a little complicated to read, you have to learn how to read it. And then the CCAT, that's a little bit simpler. But he implements it in his company. It's a $40+ million apparel company in Dallas. And he does all the hiring in his entire organization. And he's helped me do that, implement it. But he's my personal coach. I meet him once a week. And then I'm also part of the strategic coach created by Dan Sullivan that I actually come to Chicago 4 times a year for like a group coaching with a group of entrepreneurs. It's very important to keep you guys focused because we're out here on an island all by ourselves. I know I didn't talk about claims, but you know, we're all business owners too. And even if you work for another firm, in my opinion, I always consider myself an entrepreneur, even when I was working for Key Biscayne Claim Adjusters for 10 years. Because those are my clients, I'm treating my clients. Eventually, my split was high enough where I can find my own assistant. So I believe that you guys are entrepreneurs, even if you work for another firm, and you have to treat it as such.
Yeah, so just curious, how do you get your leads?
How do I get my leads?
Is it from your social media?
Pretty much.
Are you on TikTok?
I just launched TikTok, yes. And I was gonna say, TikTok, if you want to do TikTok, Gary Vee says you gotta post 4 times a day. 4 times a day. But we did just launch our TikTok channel, yes, that's going out once a day. And just to give you advice on that, the best thing that you can do if you guys want to create content is I try to dedicate, well, Hurricane Ian kind of threw a wrench into that, but Thursday and Friday, I dedicate to shooting at least 1 or 2 YouTube videos, and then I'll just put the camera in front of me and I'll shoot like just a bunch of 1-minute videos, which we send to, I don't even know where we send it now. By the way, my company is we have assistants in Nigeria, in the Philippines, in Serbia, in Vietnam, Wyoming, Louisiana. We're completely virtual, but we send the 1-minute videos out to get it clipped and edited by I think somebody in Iran, I think, somewhere. So we send them a bunch of 1-minute, then they send it back, and then we post it as shorts. YouTube Shorts is a big one that we're doing now. YouTube Shorts, Instagram Shorts, Reels, and then TikTok. Because if you do TikTok, those are Instagram Reels, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts are kind of the same thing. So we use just that one and we post it on across all of them.
So with the social media, obviously you post your own content on your page, you're gonna get more likes, views, et cetera, et cetera. But when you share, so if you post something, now you take it and share it onto my personal or on your work page, the algorithm doesn't line up, right? So a share doesn't get as much views as your own personal. Is there a way to enhance that?
Not that I know of, no. A share is not, it's not as much, but it's still content, right? I think that's what's important, especially when you're just starting out, is you have to post something. And sometimes you may not be in the mood to do a video or post a photo or anything like that. And at the very least, if you share something, at least maybe, hopefully, you can come up on somebody's feed. But take your day into life, guys. Everybody's always like, I don't know what to post, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to say, or whatever it is. Just like day in the life. And you guys are in it. You're all in the trenches. You're doing something. Or even if you didn't go out to an inspection, if you had a conversation with an adjuster and it didn't go well, you could post a video about asshole adjusters that you have conversations with and they don't go well. Or you use this tactic to try to negotiate with them and you didn't get anywhere. You got somewhere. You're able to settle the claim. Whatever it is, you can find so much content just in your daily life on what you're on and post it on social media. Where's my timing at? Good. Anybody else? Got some more time? Any questions at all? Yes, Steve.
When you first got in front of the camera, is that something that gave you anxiety? And if so, how did you overcome it?
I felt like an idiot. I was lucky because I did the travel channel with my wife, and I got rid of all my idiot there. And I didn't like the sound of my voice. I didn't like how I looked on camera. I didn't know what to say on camera. But with practice, it gets better and better. But I get asked that question all the time. And I mean, it's the same for everybody. Everybody feels uncomfortable at first. You just get better at it. When I started the YouTube channel, I was so sick and tired of editing, because I was editing all my own videos, I decided to just do it raw. So the first video, episode number 1 of the Commercial Claim Show, it's just me saying, this is going to be raw and unedited so that you can see the truth, that I kind of know what I'm talking about, but it's really because I didn't want to edit the videos. So I just did it like, I would say all the ums and all that stuff, because the editing took too long. I wouldn't be discouraged, it's just about the content. Because just by you coming out with the content, you're like a step ahead of the game from most everybody. Especially in our industry. Our industry is just like It's very, very niche, you know, it's very niche. All right, guys, thank you so much. If you want to come, I mean, I'll be here, just shoot me a message. Again, so you can find me, our website is eliteresolutions.com, commercialclaimsadvocate.com. The YouTube show is Commercial Claims Show. Commercial Claims Advocate on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and what's the other one? LinkedIn. Vince Perry on LinkedIn, and you can just send me a message there. Try to stay on top of it to just, you know, be responsive to everybody. My phone number, if you want my phone number, feel free. I still have my 305 area code, 305-632-2604. And my email address is vince@eliteresolutions.com. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you, Vince. That was awesome. Love the energy. Our next speaker we're going to have coming up is Kevin McCarthy. He's going to talk about being both the PIA and the contractor. It's going to be interesting.
Morning, everyone. My name is Kevin McCarthy. I am a home insurance adjuster at Paulson Fraser. I've been tasked to do this. Cal asked me to do this. I'm not a fan of wanting to do this because I feel as though this particular presentation is going to be a little not all doom and gloom. Hopefully there's some things you guys can take out of it that will help your businesses avoid potential pitfalls, because there are a lot of them that happen and can happen, and I've seen it firsthand. So what I'm going to go over today is just a couple of these examples, and then from there, open up to questions you guys might have with respect to how you guys conduct your businesses. The first thing I'll let everybody know is I'm not an attorney, I'm a public adjuster. A lot of this borders on legal advice, so there are plenty of attorneys in the room, so if you have questions, grab one of them. We'll definitely be able to help you out. My background, and I think what Cal saw, was that I've been in the industry close to 16 years combined experience. I grew up doing retail sales for a window and siding company. I've actually installed shingles. I did that for several seasons in my early youth. Until about 2008, I was introduced to the idea that there is another opportunity to work in the construction, and that's when I was introduced to restoration. So after that, about 2012, this is at the tail end of the economy, I ended up taking a job at Liberty Mutual. I was a producer for a couple years. I like selling insurance. That's when I got exposed to that side of the business, underwriting. And then became a public adjuster for a company that isn't around anymore, but I spent 4 years with them. They were where I had most of my experience with respect to representing both as a public adjuster and a contractor. The company used to manage probably about 300 or 400 claims a year, and I found myself in a position because I had estimating where I was writing all the supplements, I was having all the conversations. And that's where I think I really kind of got an understanding of what this could potentially be and the problems that were in the industry in itself. But at the end of 2017, 2018, made a decision to open my own business. I decided that I would never do construction. My personal opinion is I think it could potentially be a conflict of interest. It's not something I came to lightly, but the writing was on the wall, and it's a decision I made that I wanted to just stay on this side of the business. So my business, I predominantly work as a consultant, but I was always working with other business owners. And it gave me an opportunity, especially doing as much appraisal as I do, because I do maybe somewhere between 120 to 150 appraisal on an annual basis. It gave me a unique perspective that I'm able to peer review all of your guys' work product. And in doing this, you find instances where a roofing contractor is not pushing interior damages as much as they should, or where a mid-contractor is not pushing exterior damages. And there's examples for both. I had a raccoon claim where raccoon got into the attic space through the roof. They opened it up and caused a tremendous amount of damage throughout the entire house. They had to take all the insulation out, all the drywall was dropped in the entire house. When I got it, they had done all that work, but they just left the roof as a repair. It was a discontinued shingle, which should have been addressed separately. And their angle is that they're really predominantly a mid company that's just also a public adjuster too. And I've seen the same thing happen with, I have a lead-based paint cert. I've gone through that training as well, but I've seen this happen time and time again throughout Chicago, where people are not testing appropriately for interior damages. Lead-based paint it can be very serious. It's not just a patch. It's not, just a slap some more paint on it sort of situation. So overall, though, I think I don't want to be as, I guess, negative, but hopefully hopefully you guys get something out of this and are able to, avoid some potential issues. This is the reason why I wanted to do PowerPoint, because these are some snips from the Illinois Administrative Code and the Illinois Insurance Code. This particular person I was working with, and they were a larger company. They were probably putting up somewhere between annually 12 to 15,000 squares a year on roofing throughout Chicagoland area and other areas. What had happened was, I believe that one of their clients complained to the DOI, and that drew the DOI's attention. What happened was the DOI started to investigate the company. They issued an audit. They audited all of 2017, and what happened was they found that the actually, I'm mixing up the stories. This is the one with the audit from the DOI. I'll go back to that one here in a second. So what had happened with this particular guy was that he came to an issue where he didn't have an escrow account, and he had put all of his money in one particular account. I'm not sure if everybody does this. I'm hoping that most of you guys have separate accounts, but the DOI says that you have to have a non-interest bearing escrow account. And all the proceeds are supposed to go in there before they get dispersed to the operating account for the PA company or your construction company. So what the DOI found is that this gentleman was not doing it. He was, I think he's still operating. When this hook happened, I stopped working with him. But I do know he was issued fines in excess of 6 figures. So this was very cumbersome for him. I know he had a lot of legal fees. The DOI fined him pretty heavily too. This particular, this is a different situation where there was 2 companies and they were working together, and the PA was not forthright in their interest in the construction company. And this happened several years ago. And what had happened was, again, the root cause of this is they have a homeowner that is not happy with whatever part of the process. That's usually where most of these things start. And they complained. The DOI, eventually what had happened was they had, they found that they weren't, I think somebody else, a family member on the construction company here, I'm not exactly sure exactly how. But what happened through that process was the DOI got involved. Once they got involved, then they gave it to the state's attorney. The state's attorney came out and ended up suing the company for, a substantial amount of money. Also led to legal fees because there was something that happened with not being forthright about, paperwork, disclosing that you have a financial interest, and, just being candid with people. It's important to be honest with every respect to it. I mean, we're fiduciaries, so people are trusting us with all of this. So I think out of all three of these, this is probably the one that I found the most interesting, and these are all true stories. This was a PA contractor who was working in a high-end residential area. They signed a contract on a claim that was in excess of $200,000. They negotiated out with the policyholder or with the PA, or the PA negotiated out with the insurance company, settled the claim, was prepared to do the work. And then the homeowner, however he got upset or she got upset, and again, filed a complaint with the DOI. And what had happened was they found that this particular PA did not provide two competing bids. So the weird thing in Illinois, and I understand why they do this, but if a licensed public adjuster is presenting or a recommendation for any sort of work, that same public adjuster has to provide two good faith bids. So anytime you guys are requiring, or not requiring, but if you guys, I understand how the contracts work if you're representing them both, but you're supposed to be filing two good faith bids. I've seen this happen, where it's brought up in depositions and whatnot. This particular client ended up losing the claim because the PA did not get bids, but then the DOI had invalidated their contract, or voided their contract. So all the work that they put through to get the big claim, the DOI voided it. Not sure what happened. I just, if they fined or anything like that with the DOI, I just know that the gentleman was very upset about it. And then this has been brought up through depositions. If you've gone the legal route, they will question whether or not you've got two good faith competing bids for any of your work.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, we all know financial disclosures in Illinois say, acting as both. If you were not benefiting from the recommendation financially, you still have to provide those bids.
Yes. And the kicker on it too is if you make any recommendation as a public adjuster, you're automatically liable for all the craftsmanship for that individual too. Hold on one second. Yeah, another question over here.
Do you get the secondary bid fee from a company that, can you use the same other secondary bid, the same other company, ultimately over and over again?
Is that a good faith?
I mean, if we know and trust the other company in the work that they do, that would be good faith in essence, because we're trying to protect the client from shoddy work.
Potentially, yeah, I can see that being an avenue. This comes up all the time. I only know maybe one of the maybe 50 clients that I represent is aware of this law. It comes up all the time, and all it takes really is for a homeowner to get upset, file a complaint. The DOI is going to go digging, and as soon as they finally get to do this, you're going to lose the contract. So I think that if an attempt is made, it would be very hard for somebody to prove that it's not in good faith. But it depends on how far they dig. If they see, Bob's company is always getting bids from, Chuck's company, then they might raise some questions. But if it's somebody that you know and trust, then you can argue that, in defense that Chuck's a reputable contractor. So.
Are you on the hook for Chuck's work if they decide to use Chuck's bid?
Yes. Anytime a PA is recommending anything, they're always liable for all the craftsmanship. That is, I don't have that snippet in here, but I can find it and I can send it to everybody. This is the exact reason why I don't recommend it anyway. Go ahead.
So why do both? That's my conflict. I couldn't do both. I mean, it's an inherent conflict in the beginning. Would be better served just to do one or the other instead of trying to go for the same claim.
So the elephant in the room, my understanding is the reason why most PAs do this is so that their name is on the check, so their clients can't run. Nobody wants to lose a client. But it's also quality control. There's a substantial amount of money to be made as a contractor. When you're able to do both, it can be, I think, beneficial in a sense, as long as you do it the right way. You're in lockstep with yourself, obviously, I hope. But this is the reason why I decided I was never going to do construction, just because I didn't want the headaches that come along with this whole part of the process.
It seems like just a rigmarole no-win situation for the insured mostly.
So I would agree with that too. Well, not necessarily, because I think people, from a homeowner standpoint, nobody really wants to have to jump through all these hoops. They're already dealing with the travesty as it is. This is a one-stop shop. You know, we're a convenient society. If you can get everything from one shop, why wouldn't you, right? So I think that that's one of the benefits to it. It's just, there's a tremendous amount of red tape around it, and this is just part of it. I think these are just the examples that I wanted to illustrate today. But in doing that, it's just, you have to make sure you're complying with everything. You have to read the insurance code, you have to read the admin code to make sure that you're not putting yourself in jeopardy. You know, you don't want the attention of the DOI in that sort of way. Any other questions?
This is specifically Chicago or
Yeah.
Illinois?
This is specifically Illinois. So there are only a couple states that I know of in the entire country that actually allow this. It's Illinois and Iowa. I know there's other states, I just don't know which.
Maryland.
Steve says Maryland. Okay. There's another question? Yeah, go ahead.
So the full financial disclosure that we have them sign, we're recommending, like, we waive our public adjuster fee, homeowner signs that. We still have to give them 2 competing bids, even though that they're signing our agreement and choosing to go with the company that is waiving our public adjuster fee. Because that's
Sure.
it, right?
Yeah, of course, you still have to provide 2 good faith bids, so that's not an option. As soon as the recommendation is made, any recommendation, like I recommend you, I have to recommend those 2 folks too. And then from there, obviously I think it's in the financial interest of the homeowner to go with the original offer, but you still have to make the attempt. Sure.
This is newer, right?
2015. No, this is 7 years old. This has been around for a while. Most of the stuff in the admin code is pretty consistent with around 2015.
Second thing, so when we're making recommendations, as public adjuster, you're on the hook for the code change. When it comes to musicians with bids, have you ever heard it, or what were your thoughts on if that's not a recommendation required? So you previously said that, you know, the hook, if they want to do bids, if I would recommend it and say, or not recommend it, but offer the bid and say, these are our recommendations required, give the estimates of the price. I know you're not a lawyer, I'm just curious.
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, if you're offering them up just to appease the 2 good faith bids, but you're not recommending them, that's a gray area.
So basically, they're working for the scope of work for the insurance company. I mean, what kind of pricing? I mean, you know, I mean, is the homeowner going to make a profit on this thing? I don't understand why they need 2 competitive bids. What are they going to? Are they going to do a better job? Are they going to give them extra windows? Are they going to? I mean, it's not for a homeowner to make a profit on it to begin with.
There's a couple different arguments with respect to homeowners profiting from a claim, but I think that's kind of a rabbit hole. I think the intention of this is to give the homeowners an out if they don't like their PA. That's my honest opinion. Because it's at that point they can't, conduct their due diligence as a consumer and educate themselves and get competing bids. Most people, when they're looking to purchase any sort of product or service, they do a little bit of research, right? You're looking at, multiple attorneys when you're looking for, help. You look for different types of auto insurance. You look for different mortgage rates when you go to refinance. That's just the nature of being a consumer. When you're locked into working with this one individual, or else you pay a 30% fee, then it becomes where you're not able to do that. So, do you have any question? Go ahead.
All right, I want to be a little long-winded. So you have to get 2 competitive bids. Is that actually handing them a bid with a dollar amount on it from 2 other companies? One part of it is now after you're using so many companies and they're not getting work, they're basically spinning their tires. I don't want to keep giving you bids. Or are you giving them preview like what the RCB is, and everyone will do the job for the not insurance proceeds, but at the same dollar amount. And then on top of that, I don't know where I was going with that, but, is it legal that you give them what the scope of work dollar amount is? And then you say all three of these companies will do it for this, price, or, I mean, I know it's a gray area, but I need a little clarification.
I don't think it's as great as you think. I think your responsibility in any claim is you're a public adjuster first. You're a fiduciary for the insured. You have obligations to fulfill that contractual agreement between you and them prior to any sort of construction interest on the claim. You have to be a PA first. If you're a PA and you're required to do this because you want to work, find a couple friends and just work it out where you guys do it. It's cumbersome because it's additional work for it, but this is what everybody needs to do. So that's my opinion on it. So I'll come back to this here in a second. But since we're on the point of some of these questions, the idea is that I think options moving forward is, and I've talked with an attorney I know, if you're more interested in the PA work, you could potentially, if you don't see it being a profitable job or not your margins, you could reduce your construction interest. You could just take a PA fee. You can't take less than what you originally put on your contract, but you could just walk away from the construction and let them, and then you don't have to worry about it. So personally, I cap my fees at 10% because I can go to any state in the country and I can still work at 10%. I know not all companies do that. Fees are different from state to state. And the big thing is kind of going back to some of these other things with respect to just this is it's required. There's no way around it. But as long as you make an effort, I don't think anybody's going to dig into it that much. Do we have any other questions on this specific topic?
So is that for like every trade? Say like we got 2 roofing quotes and like gotta get somebody else from the trade.
Yes. Yeah, it's a lot, I know. So overall, I know we got stuck on this for a little bit, but another thing that I think a lot of people do in trying to avoid some of these horror stories where you're getting fined and you're being audited and you've got all these legal issues now because you're not conducting yourself appropriately. This is not a requirement, but this is more of a recommendation on my opinion. And I'm definitely being speculative when it comes to this, but I personally think, and I know some attorneys will cringe when they hear this, but I think every claim should be proved. The reason why in Illinois is that there are built-in tolling laws. You don't have to have an agreement. You just file the proof, and the claim is automatically tolled between the dates that the proof was filed and the claim is denied. So currently, I have some claims that are tolled indefinitely because they've not denied it, they cannot deny it, and we're still negotiating claims and selling them, which is very beneficial. The problem with people not tolling this, and I've learned this through doing appraisals, is I've had claim files that come to my desk, and I'm looking at them, and I realize that this carrier routinely tries to deny appraisal. The problem with that is that the recourse, if they deny appraisal, is usually you have to go to suit. You have to compel the insurer to go to appraisal. But if their statute of limitations is expired, how can you do that? You cannot. So this is my opinion with respect to some of the claims. I think that you should toll them all. If you go into Cal's class, Sean Melny's class, you'll know that filing a proof of loss sets all the deadlines and sets the whole claim up moving forward. There's a lot of benefits to doing this. Most policies that I've read do not require a proof of loss, but it's at the carrier's recommendation or request. And I think they do that so that the statute runs early. Or not early, but at your 1-year marker. So I guess in conclusion, I guess and the objective with this is to try to help educate you guys all. I mean, this is obviously a doom and gloom situation where we're talking about horror stories. You probably realize that, like, okay, I've been complying with some claims, maybe many, I don't know, that's for you guys to decide. So with the first example, I would talk about, obviously disclosing your financial interest. Don't, be candid with respect to who's involved in the claim, who you're recommending. If you run into issues where you've got banking situations or finances, make sure to separate your accounts. How you're supposed to keep an escrow account, keep an operating account before you ever get into the construction company. And the biggest thing is obviously just try to figure your homeowners. If you sign a client that is somebody that's unruly or anticipating problems, just try to resolve it as quickly as possible before they make your life a nightmare. So I hope there's no Karens in the audience. If there are, I apologize. But that's what I call them Karen. So did anybody, that's pretty much it. Did anybody have any other questions?
So, I'm just being clear. Homeowner gets a check.
Yep.
I'm on it, they're on it, the mortgage is on it. We've all signed off on it. We decided to go with the contractor. We can hand them the check. We don't have to put it in an escrow account, right?
No, you don't. I don't put any of my checks in an escrow account. Very seldom do I do that. Usually when I'm sitting down with somebody, they're writing me a check, or they already have a cashier's check based on an invoice that I've already produced prior to me ever endorsing it. So that happens. I learned that in boot camp. Yeah. So it makes life a lot easier, and I don't feel like I have to pay somebody else. I think it's cleaner. I'm not sitting here waiting for money. The PA, that's your leverage, is that you are on the check, so you have to sign it. And if you don't, and they deposit it, then that's a whole other issue. I'd say that too.
So, I guess what I'm asking is, do I have to put it in my own account before I start thinking it's given to the contractor?
If it's going to the contractor, I would definitely put it in your account. I would put it in your account, and then, obviously make sure you've got a good bookkeeper, and then transfer it from your escrow account to your operating account, then go from your operating account to the contractor.
So that's how that guy that during the presentation got in trouble because he wasn't doing that?
So I don't know exactly what his banking looked like, to be honest, but I do know that he had one primary account, and the audit was pretty severe, and they said that you're commingling money almost for, they were threatening misappropriation, and it's a pretty serious, you're gonna lose your license, you're going to jail sort of situation. But he basically, he had to do what he had to do, legal, and obviously, he's still in business, and he's not in jail, but he was, had a very, very strong flat in the hand.
The only reason I'm asking is because under my impression, I've been told that we can all just sign and hand it over to the contractor and never have to touch that sort of account under my current.
I would double check with the attorney and ask whoever your attorney is.
What if the shoe's on the other side? What if the contractor brings you in as a public adjuster and you have some kind of working agreement?
All bets are off. Doesn't matter, I'm not making a recommendation. And that's
Is that a recommendation or not?
I'm not recommending anything.
He's recommending you.
Contractor's gonna
But
go.
you have an agreement with them.
I'll accept their payment for my fee. I don't think that's kind of a gray area, and I don't know that it's illegal. I've not had anybody tell me that it's not illegal or that it's wrong.
And the reason, here in Illinois is one thing, but you go out to a different state, and if the contractor brings you in and you have a working relation,
I don't see that being a problem here, no, because I'm not, as a public adjuster, say you're your contractor, say, Kevin, I have a problem with the roof, or whatever the case may be, I need your help. I'm not, obviously, I'm not making the recommendation, you're the contractor to me. So, and that's, I think, if an option to work around is, don't solicit yourself as public adjusters, start soliciting yourself as contractors, because let's be honest here, that's what most of you guys are, truly. There's an opportunity to be a PA on some of these files, but is it necessary? No. So that's obviously user discretion, but, no, I've never had that come up, and I would, fight that tooth and nail if they came and tried to say, well, you want to get two bids. I wasn't the recommending party. So, good question. Was there another question over here? No? Does anybody have any other questions?
In your experience, how often does it
When your homeowner complains, they don't, in my experience, if you complain to the DOI about a carrier, usually the response is one page, one sentence. We don't make coverage decisions, regardless of where the context of the complaint is. And that's, my experience. But, so on the other side though, when the homeowner complains about their public adjuster, they're all over it.
So, yeah, but from what you've seen, they're not randomly running around doing audits.
No, I don't know. The one company was audited. I heard rumors of other companies being audited as well.
But not to an extent that you see this
I haven't heard about anybody being audited in the last 2 or 3 years. This is 1 year, and they kept on auditing in 2017 for some reason, and there was a handful of companies that were larger companies that were doing a substantial amount of work there at all. That was the rumor. I know one for sure, but again, I heard from others. I haven't heard about this coming up very often, but again, I think this only happens when you have your unruly homeowners that are pissed with you. Take care of your homeowners, and everything's fine. A lot of this other paperwork, I would just present it as, hey, are we still in business together? I have to do this because I have to stay compliant with the state. Do you have any intention of, picking these other two contractors? Do you want to go with this guy? Chances are no. If you do a good job, your clients should love you, right? So as long as you do a good job and take care of your clients, they're not going to complain. And if you understand and tell them like, hey, this is a compliance requirement, I have to do this, they're going to be, I think they're going to appreciate your candor. Doing appraisal work, I tell people all the time, I don't care what your opinion is. Nobody wants to hear that, but being an appraiser, my job is to be impartial, unbiased. I tell homeowners all the time, they tell me, Kevin, when you settle the claim, I don't care, I'm trying to sell my house. Sorry, I can't, please, and I had one homeowner specifically tell me, he said, accept whatever they offer. And it was a direct, how to conduct myself. You cannot do that. So as long as you take that stance, I think people will respect you for it more, and I think you're going to build a better relationship with that client too. Good question, everybody.
Personal question.
Sure.
At what point do you stop acting
That's up to you. When did I stop doing both? When I opened my business in 2018. The last job I put up was a $90,000 roof and siding job that was hardy, and that was in Elgin. So, and it was like a 45% gross profit. It was a good job, made a lot of money, but I just saw the writing on the wall. And it became very, very transparent when I started doing appraisal because again, I'm getting your guys' files. So again, it's an opportunity for me to peer review everybody without actually you asking me for a peer review. But it's pretty consistent. Not everybody. So this is obviously worst case scenario. I mean, there's a lot of companies out there that do it the right way. A lot of companies that have been in business for a very long time, especially on the fire restoration side. Those guys are in lockstep and they know how to do their job and they know how to stay out of hot water. So obviously the roofing industry is a little bit, this is a newer side of PA in Illinois, but yeah, so. Any other questions, anybody? No? All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. That was a really difficult topic to tackle there. Just a reminder, our speakers are practitioners. They're up here because of their contributions in the industry and their ability to continue to move things forward in our industry. Most of them are not professional college speakers. They're actually experts in what they do, but let's have a little bit of grace for them, just kind of keep that in mind, because the expertise and knowledge is definitely there to be conveyed. Our next speaker is going to be Neil McLaughlin, and he will be discussing appraisal in the real world. We all know how it's supposed to work, and he's going to talk about how it does work.
Can you hear me all right? Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, Kevin did a great job with that. They're getting rid of the Irish already early. McCarthy, McLaughlin. My name is Neil McLaughlin. And Kevin's one of the good ones here in Illinois. You know, it's amazing. He brought up a few points in his presentation. A lot of people are like deer in the headlights. Like, I have to give, you know, it's been going on for years and things like that. And I certainly wouldn't want to give any advice that would circumvent the spirit of the law here in Illinois. But as someone brought up, and we've talked, that if the contractor recommends the PA, then you avoid this issue. All right? So, happy to be here with you, learning and things like this. And some other remarks, you know, you come to these events and you invest in yourself, and it really does pay off. You know, there's luck, and people find these wonderful, and I've spent a lot of time between South Carolina and Florida recently with the storms. But the issue is, we come to these events and you really do network. You get a lot of information in the hallways when you're talking to other people that are practitioners, and you pick up some nuggets from people that are really, not myself, but other people that really are names in the industry that really do a lot of things. So I'm here on behalf of the Appraisal and Umpire Association. We started here in Illinois, but we have 330 members around the country, and we're trying to make sure that appraisal stays the way it is. And I'm glad we're able to talk in person as opposed to recently muting ourselves and doing everything remotely. A little bit about me. You just want to take a picture of this for my phone number if you have it later. This is some of the things I've done. My background is in investigations. Work for carriers. Have a PA license. Primarily work in umpire and appraisal, court-appointed umpire, multiple jurisdictions. You know, I don't know if you realize this, but either side, carrier or contractor side or insurance advocate, they both call each other the dark side. You realize that, right? So I have friends that work for Cedric and different things that, I can't believe you got your PA license, you're working for the dark side. Or, I can't. So the idea behind this Mend the Fracture, this conference that Cal and Melanie put together is to kind of have like a coming together and understanding of things. And I think we need more of that in the industry. You also can't be an island. You can't be by yourself in this industry anymore. Years ago, it was a lot of one-person shops, right? And they kind of did everything. And I don't think you can survive in this environment without reaching out for experts and things like this. You're going to need somebody as an engineer to combat things sometimes. You're going to need an appraiser sometimes. The rules are trying to separate and have arm's distance between the contractors and PAs, so that's why they put these laws in that Kevin spoke about earlier. And there's really a movement on, and some people that are from Texas and different things, they're saying, wait a minute, the PA and the contractor actually talk to each other. Other places it's like a class 4 felony to do some of the things we do here in Illinois. But they're slowly evolving, and I think it'll be better for the profession as a whole to kind of make PAs more a distance from the contractors. And I know in Illinois we've evolved as you're the board up company, you're the emergency services company, you're the mitigator, you're the PA, and you're the contractor. You do all at once. But a lot of the country isn't like that. So Illinois is just trying to make little baby steps towards differentiating the roles. So again, disclaimer, we're just having a conversation is the way I feel about this. It's not legal advice representing the agency or anything else as I talk, okay? These are just my own opinion. Advice I was given, be brief, be brilliant, be gone. Give the people the information and get off the stage. I'm only here by virtue of a lot of great people. No one's born with this innate knowledge of claims and things, no matter how you feel like you're an expert in something. Everyone had a mentor, everyone learned. And I think that, we do well to humble ourselves and remember that we all are standing on somebody else's shoulders, And hopefully we can pay it forward at some point and be that mentor for the next generation of people coming up. So, this is a lot of people, when they start talking about appraisal, it's a little, show of hands, how many people use appraisal on a regular basis? How many people just say to hell with it and go right to the attorney? Okay, oh, thanks, Dave. And, all right, and the rest of you, just in the gray area, haven't dabbled in appraisal yet, and looking to find out more, and that's why you're here? All right. So you take classes in appraisal, you know, there's a lot of different, a few different organizations out there providing. Any training is good, I advocate for it. And you feel like, hey, I'm ready to go get them. And then after you get bogged down and slowed down by the insurance company and things, this is what you end up looking like, right? So, appraisal clause, standard appraisal clause. I'm not gonna read it to you. Here's another way to get some of this stuff done, 20, 15, 30. It's all pretty simple, that's all you need to know, right? That's all you need, right? Right there. Don't need anything more than appraisal, right? And the next week we'll be here in 30 minutes. Well, actually the issue is, the appraisal clause is so limited, it's better to talk about what it doesn't cover, right? Because that's really the gray area. That's where we come up with things. And that's where we have, all right? They're writing, you know, Mr. Badger, that represents Zell and things like this. He's writing different things for TWIA and changing the appraisal clause from the one paragraph that we're normally used to 3-4 pages long. Putting things in there and trying to advocate for things like go to appraisal or litigation, you don't get to do both, pick one. Time limits on when you're gonna demand appraisal, okay? These are all the things that are going on out there in the world. And a lack of knowledge, lack of understanding, and lack of advocacy is really gonna hurt the whole industry, all right? I like to say, you know, when people come up to me and ask me, well, can I do this in appraisal? Can I do it? And I live in the real world. You know, I live in a world where when you demand appraisal, you get ignored. I live in a world when you demand appraisal, you get form letter saying it's a causation issue and we can't talk about it. All right? So what you do before you even demand appraisal and you frame the argument is way more important than the mechanics of just demanding appraisal, in my mind. Okay? And we've developed things in the AUA called framing letters for just that purpose. You want to make sure you're framing the argument that you're arguing over what? The amount of loss. This is what you want to frame the argument on. Because if you don't, right, you won't get the form letter, right? Even if you frame it correctly, you still get the form letter in some cases, right? And let's face it, the $1 million claims, although I've done claims in millions of dollars in appraisal, are they going to appraisal normally? Or you got to seek out a legal advocate, an attorney, right? And so you should. But the issue is, the smaller claims, at least in Illinois, and I know I get some pushback from attorneys in the room there, and get along with great, great people. The issue is, an attorney, just for the sake of financial interest, right? If you went to just depositions, you'd have a minimum of how many depositions, right? Someone told, we were at the dinner one time, we were talking about, you'd have the PA, the adjuster from the carrier, maybe a donut engineering for the carrier, and an engineer for the, so now you have a minimum of 4 deps to do, that all cost money. And if it's a $30,000 claim, who pays for all this? You don't get your attorney fees paid like we don't have it, like we don't in Illinois. So it's practicality. They're not taking these claims not because they don't want to take the claims. They'd love to have the business, trust me. But the idea is there's just no money in it. So where are you left? Arbitration or appraisal, right? So if you're going to go to appraisal, right, make sure you know a little something about it, that you're able to frame the argument and you have some competent representation to go to appraisal with. Whether you learn yourself and get up to speed and have someone in your firm do it in-house, or you have somebody that's truly independent and neutral. I work for carriers and I work for contractor advocates, both. All right? It used to be years ago when you sent your CV in as an umpire or as an appraiser, you used to have a percentage of the amount of time you worked for one side or the other, demonstrating you were neutral, whether it was 60, 40, 70, 30, but it was certainly not 100% contractor, you know, or things like this. Nowadays, you see more of them. You don't even see a percentage on a CV, all right? So why appraisal, right? We've got all the great attorneys here, Chip, Steve, all these people are gonna come talk to you. Because judicial economy, right? You don't want to clog up the courts with every little thing. They're already clogged up, all right? Originally, the appraisal clause was put in by the carriers as an out for them, and now years later, it seems to be turned around, all right? And this is your typical appraisal panel, right? Or so it would seem, because you never hear back from them, you don't know what happens, and they originally sold you on what? Let's go to appraisal and get this thing paid. And what happened? It could drag on for months. It'd be like, I might as well go to an attorney and litigate this out because it's taking the same amount of time. Or worse yet, I went to appraisal, it didn't get paid by the carrier, and I got to go to litigation anyway. Now you've really done a disservice to everyone and given appraisal a bad name. So the idea is, you know, let's be careful what we take to appraisal, right? And normally the term ripe is thrown around. Is this claim ripe for appraisal? And ripe, I like that because it has two meanings, right? Is it ripe? Is it ready to be picked? Is it mature? Or ripe, does it smell bad? Right? So the idea is, let's take a look at what we're doing and assess, as opposed to people who may be on social media platforms that as soon as someone mentions appraisal, pick me, put my name in, I'll do it. Well, let's look at whether or not you even go to appraisal in the first place. Let's be realistic. Let's live in the real world. And let's give people honest advice. And let's have integrity enough to turn down business, to walk away from money, and say, no, I can't, in good conscience, take this to appraisal because I see where this is going and it's not worth it. Forget about getting a retainer, all right? So, you know, what are we not supposed to be doing in appraisal? Two things. We're not supposed to be, and this won't be popular with this audience maybe, we're not supposed to be appraising contractor profit. Nor are we supposed to be, you know, looking at limiting what the carrier has to pay. But too often, we may be looking at appraising contractor profit, right? You can't send your kid to college on every job. No, unfortunately. You should make a profit, absolutely, all right? What we're looking at here is the amount of loss. We're just trying to determine an amount of loss. That's what we're supposed to settle. Appraisal is not to be bringing things in. Now, here's the trick in appraisal. What we do here in Illinois is different than what they can do in Florida. What you can do in Florida in certain counties within the same state is different. Talking about causation and date of loss and all these things. So really, appraisal is subject to the venue, the area that you're in, and the rules in that area, okay? So really you should know what you're doing, you know what I mean? You don't want to do that, all right? The amount of loss, okay? Has there been a reasonable effort to negotiate? I've had people come to me and say, I want to go to appraisal. Okay, let me send over the file, let me take a look at it, or somebody in the office will take a look at it. Great. Okay, well, you didn't even send an estimate in. How are you having a dispute over an amount of loss when you just signed the client up and you haven't even negotiated with the carrier and sent an estimate in your position? It's inappropriate to go to appraisal for that. Appraisal is when you've already exhausted things and you're at an impasse, right? When you've legitimately tried to settle the claim. Not that you signed the client and you want to go to appraisal the next day, all right? So make sure that you have you've gone through the steps of honestly trying to negotiate a settlement and get the money, all right? Then, and only then, is something appropriate for appraisal, all right? Use the right tools, okay? It's time to call the attorney, it's time to call the attorney. It's time to use appraiser, fine. Arbitration is another option. Look at all your options. I suggest to a lot of my clients that are roofing contractors or general contractors, whatever, why don't you negotiate as best you can? Because I'll tell you what happens in the Midwest sometimes. As soon as the PA, his name gets entered on a file, things seem to slow down, all right? Especially with Cap Team 66 and everyone else. Negotiate as best you can as what you are, primarily, which is contractors in most cases. Negotiate as the contractor. Don't bring the PA in prematurely. Try and settle the claim yourself. And I understand a lot of contractors got PA licenses and they pay for PAs for the sake of just, as Kevin mentioned earlier, having your name on the check so people don't run away. But at the end of the day, how many people really run away? You're worried about this fear that 99% of the time doesn't happen, really. So instead of acting from a position of fear and what could happen, why don't you just act as what you are, professional contractors, and negotiate the claim as best you can. And only after you've done your due diligence, only after you've done your job, and you can't resolve it, then bring in the help. All right? Appraisal works. It really does. You might not think so because you won't get your estimate, but is your estimate legitimate? You know, do we need a bathroom for men, women, and gender neutral on every job? Yeah. Okay, so the idea is it doesn't work and it tarnishes the profession of appraisal when the awards are not paid, when the fees are excessive, all right, for the appraiser and the buyer, all right, and certainly not when they end up in litigation anyway, right? These are the things you want to watch out for, and these are the things you want to like go. And the other thing I want to mention, I usually put this at the end of presentations, is you do provide a service that's needed. You do help people when they are usually at loss. And I used to have t-shirts made where we'd say, first they're needy, then they're greedy, and then on the back you would say, then they're seedy. But you do provide a service to people at a time when they have just had a disaster, when they've just had a loss. And my thing is, if you just start referring to them as your precious customers, okay, treat them like you would like someone to treat your family, and do the right thing by them, it really will benefit you, not only in referrals and how do we get claims, how do we get more claims and things like that, but it just will help you in every aspect of your business. If you just treat people the way you want people to treat your family if they had a recent disaster, if they just had a claim, okay? The money will be there, I guarantee it. You'll all do well, all right? So, I'm gonna skip through this because of limited time. You're gonna need attorneys at appraisal sometimes? Yeah. You're gonna need them to compel appraisal, go court-appointed umpire, try to disqualify, set aside awards sometimes, vacate awards. These are all things you might need. These are things you should be thinking about, all right? Again, I'm gonna skip through a lot of this. And unilateral appointments, you know, you don't want to circumvent the spirit of the law. You know, if we're supposed to be working together in appraisal to come to an amount of loss, and one of the other party runs off to a judge to try and get a named umpire that may or may not be favorable to them, is that really working together? Is that really working in tandem? I don't know if it is or not. And there's abuses on both sides of the fence, certainly. But the idea is, just because one side does it, do you do it? I don't think so. You still want to act with integrity, all right? I'm not going to get into this, but limits of appraisal, right? Again, by venue. Are you going to be able to talk about causation? Not in Illinois. Minnesota, some other places you might be better off to do that. The issue is know your venue, know what you can do, know what appraisal is suited for, okay? A lot of times I get questions, well, if an umpire or appraiser is supposed to be independent, but this person always works for carriers, doesn't that make them kind of leaning towards the advocate side for the appraiser? And this question comes up time and time again. It's already been decided, there's been litigation on it, but the issue is, no, you're not going to be able to disqualify an appraiser simply because that appraiser works for the majority of the time for a carrier, okay? That's not enough to say that they're biased, okay? And I know that question comes up a lot in the classes that we give at AUA and things like that, and we go over it more in depth in class, but the idea is a person can still be independent even if they just work for one, one side or the other, all right? Memorandum of appraisal. unless you're an attorney, unless you want to take on this is an area that I advise people to stay away from. I don't agree to sign it on either side. If someone presents something to you, because usually what is this doing? It's limiting the scope of your appraisal. And I don't suggest anyone go to limited scope appraisal. Why? Because how does that benefit you in any way? If you're supposed to take a look at the entirety of the loss of what was initially covered under terms of policy, why would you then limit? So, unless you want to go to law school and everything else and then start playing around with these memorandums and stop the cutting and pasting or looking at Facebook and advice from people on Facebook that may or may not apply in your area, unless you're going to seek out the counsel of a licensed attorney, I would stay away from these things. All right? I don't think it benefits you. So, duties of an appraiser. So we had a lot of talk at the AUA about this. When people are umpires or appraisers, umpires specifically in the AUA and they're certified, one of the things we require them to do is when they render an award, that they actually give an estimate. Not just the one sheet, RCB, ACB, here's your award, have a nice day. Because what does that do? If the carrier decides that there's something in a policy that doesn't apply and they minus that amount from the award, how do you know that that hasn't already been taken into consideration? It causes all kinds of problems. So yes, you don't have to learn Xactimate, although I suggest you do if you work in the field. But if not, you better have somebody who does know Xactimate to write your award for you if you're going to act as an umpire. We think that's proper umpiring, all right? And that way everyone knows what you decided. In addition, everyone's aware that the umpire job is a very simple job in appraisal. Your job is not to create your own estimate. Your job is not to create your own findings. Your job is simply to rule on the differences between what's presented to you by the two appraisers. Many times I see inadequate representation by one appraiser, but it's not my job to fix it. Just like you as PAs and contractors, can you make a good policy better? If they have a $50,000 deductible, what are you going to do? Can you fix that? No. That's what they signed up for. And sometimes we don't want those hard conversations because we don't want to walk away from the claim. But at the end of the day, many claims you'd be better served walking away from or being honest with people and saying, this is the insurance you bought. I didn't buy it. This is the deductible you chose. And because why? People don't really know what their policies say until they try to use them. Only then do they find out what kind of insurance they purchased. What they purchased was a payment. They wanted to stay under $100 a month because they lumped in their insurance payment with their mortgage. All right? So the umpire is really just making a determination between the two sides at positional papers and making a difference. They're not supposed to, and I know it happens all the time and it's incorrect, create their own award. They're only supposed to be looking at the differences. All right? They're supposed to be independent. We talked about that a little bit. What's ways that they can vacate awards on appraisal? Right? Really very few. Because if we, as we talked about earlier, if appraisal exists not to clog up the court system, the courts don't want to review every appraisal because it would be redundant and clog up the court system. So they give a lot of weight to an appraisal award, and they won't easily overturn an appraisal award, which is why you have to do it right. Okay? But to vacate an award is an uphill battle in most cases, unless you're going to be able to prove fraud, corruption, misconduct, all right, exceeding authority. And even then, it's a fight. So, trying to think of some of the questions we have come up that are more of the tougher questions. Do you have to go to an appraiser meeting if you're acting as an appraiser? And one side says, be at the property at 10 o'clock, now let's meet there. Should you? Out of courtesy and professional respect, of course. But is it mandatory you attend an appraiser meeting on site? All right, take it down a notch. As a PA and the adjuster from the insurance company wants to come out to the property, do you have to come out and meet him? You do? You have fiduciary responsibility. Can you not fulfill that fiduciary responsibility in another way, or you have to go out and meet him?
Should have it.
Right, what if you have a personality conflict with that person, you torpedo the case if you go out there? Right? I don't think it's necessity. Should you? Of course. Do you want to get along and get and resolve the issue? Of course. But what's mandatory? And I always refer back to that appraisal clause, which is very, very small and very, very limited in scope and direction of what you should do, which is why I don't suggest appraisers, at least for the first foray into appraisal, do appraisals on their own. Get some training, get some assistance, get someone who has a little experience doing it. First, you wouldn't even know who to put on your umpire list. So now, you don't have an umpire list, you gotta go to an appraiser, you got an umpire list from the opposing appraiser, you're gonna pick one of theirs, and you don't know what they're about? You may have lost the appraisal before you began it. Okay? Real world stuff, all right? Where are we going from here? Courts are going to continually have issues and decide and frame and shape and form how appraisal is conducted, all right? When the legislator doesn't, they do, all right? Denying appraisal, we talked about that. Limited scope appraisal, we talked about that. Stay away from it. But it's really up to people in this room on how they're going to conduct appraisals or choose to go to appraisal or not, where the future of appraisal is going. There's ticking time bombs out there, I always feel, when I look at some of these cases, or I passed on some cases and they went ahead and went through it, I'm thinking to myself, this is going to create bad case law. This is going to hurt appraisal. So what I would suggest is vet the appraisals before you go. Vet what you're going to send to appraisal. Make a determination as soon as you can where you're going to go, so you're not just sitting with the file. All those files on your desk, all the files sitting there, that's all messing with your cash flow, right? So I suggest that you somehow have a business system whereby after a certain amount of days, you're going to get these things paid or into appraisal or into litigation or wherever you're going to go with it, okay? Because files sitting on your desk is you financing a job, which you can't afford to do over a long period of time, or you losing money that should be in the works, okay? So don't just hope that things are going to get paid. Have a plan. Have a plan of what you're going to do after so many days. You get a denial letter and document your cases. Document what you do. I know Cal and Melanie are very big on documenting so that you have a really lit and ready case if you need to go to litigation. But if you look at things and determine early on that no matter what the case is, it might end up in litigation, you'll treat it accordingly. And you'll be better off for it. All right? I know attorneys come in, they have great cases and everything else, and they go, yeah, they brought in this folder, it was a joke, so, you know, they gotta make, you know, order out of chaos. Already have your files in order, it'll serve you well, all right? Other things, surround yourself with good people. People that have ethics, people that are investing in themselves, all right? Go to conferences, share your knowledge with people. You know, it's like lightning in a jar. If it's all bottled up, what good is it? You know? Share your knowledge, and it'll come back to you. Let people know what you know. Treat the clients, as I said earlier, like family. It's not just about the referrals. It's about treating them the way you would want to be treated or a family member treated. All right? Participate in conferences, and you're in charge of your own learning path, your own careers. Okay? Invest in yourself. You're worth it. You really are. You're worth investment in. And we get so caught up in the next job and the next case and the next signature on the next line and the next check. Take time every once in a while to go to these events, invest in yourself, because you really are worth it. All right? Now, I'm not going to run out of here. I'll be around in the hallways and things, so if there's things I didn't cover, which I know there's a million, you just have general questions, please come up to me and talk, and we'll figure things out. And with that, I'll open everything up to questions. Go ahead.
It's a great idea, just as a public adjuster. You got so much work going on, do your estimate, you're having difficulty and you come to that edge, just turn it over to an appraiser or consult. But I have an issue with one deal. It was turned over to appraisal and umpire.
Oh, here we go.
And they botched the decision, okay? They gave everything. They gave law and ordinance, insulation. They forgot to pay for the roof. The insurance company doesn't want to pick it up. It says, hey, it went to an appraisal. They didn't pay for the roof. And so, I mean, is there an amendment that should be done?
Well, as I mentioned before, very hard to overturn appraisal because you have appraisals not to close up the court, clog up the courts. Therefore, they want to review every appraisal case. Hard to overturn or vacate appraisal. But if it has merit, if you have an argument, it can be done.
Vacate it?
Yeah, but before going to the attorney, before trying to vacate, what I've done in the past is asked for, and sometimes gotten, a reconvene of the panel, okay? All right, let's ask voluntarily the panel to reconvene, which can be done, straighten out the mistake, so we can avoid litigation and vacating the award. I've done that before as well, all right? We're all human. This is a very blue-collar field, right? This is why this is not the attorney arena. This is very blue-collar field. This is supposed to be blue-collar people settling this dispute that have a little knowledge about the amount of loss of what it takes to put a roof back on or rebuild a home or things like this. So they understand that we don't have procedural issues and rules of order and what can be presented and the timeliness of it and where it came from. It's very blue collar. So they understand mistakes will be made. It's okay, we're human. We all suffer from the human condition. We're gonna make mistakes. If we do that, it's okay to say, oh, time out, yeah, let's see if we can reconvene and fix this issue. All right?
Last question, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
What are the results of the way you're saying, vacate the appraisal? I mean, they already sent you the check for the appraisal process.
Well,
you
you do supplements.
award, you have a nice award, and you vacate it. Can you continue arguing the point then?
Right, well, just like in a regular claim, you do a supplement on the claim, they can write more than one check if there's something that needs to be added, so you're not bound by that, just like if someone sent an undisputed amount check and you cashed it. I know years ago, they do something sneaky like, this is full final payment, and cashing this check constitutes a closing of the settlement. They can't do that anymore, all right? There's been too many, that doesn't pass the smell test. So what they do is now, okay, yeah, so they'll send you a undisputed amount. People ask you all the time as PAs, can I cash this check? No, it's for $12,000, go ahead and cash it, there'll be more, it's fine, all right? So, all right, the lights are dimming. That's like the hook to get off the stage. Yes, sir.
You said something earlier that just kind of woke me up.
I'm sorry for that.
Could you elaborate on what you mean by we should not be appraising contractors overhead and profit?
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say profit. Right. We should be appraising the amount of the loss, not the amount of profit that a contractor is going to get on the job. But I didn't mention overhead and profit. If it's appropriate, it's in policy, it should be addressed.
Well, that's why I was curious. My company has a different overhead than ABC Roofing.
Sure.
So the ideology that we should be.
Right. Well, listen.
Overhead and not profit.
No. I didn't want to confuse you with overhead and profit and contractor profit. What I was talking about with contractor profit was there was enough money to do the job, they made a profit, but now they want to go to appraisal because they want more profit. That's not what we should be appraising. Now, when it goes to, speaking of overhead and profit, how many of you put in 15 or 20% on commercial jobs? 10% is appropriate for residential. I routinely give awards who are 15 and 20% overhead and profit for commercial jobs. Why? There's less commercial contractors out there. They have a different set of issues when dealing with commercial properties. There's a less pool of them than there are for residential contractors. They sometimes have higher budgets, higher rates, higher costs of doing business, higher insurance fees, all right? And because of that, they're entitled to a higher percentage of OP, all right? Go ahead, sorry.
I'm talking back and I'm thinking about it a little bit more. As an appraiser, how would you know that somebody is trying to get more profit?
No, you don't. That was more geared towards the people who are sending things to appraisal. Yeah, so you as an appraiser, you don't know what they're running in, yes. Right, so, yes, sir.
So, problem. So you just said, with a residential contractor should be fined 10 to 10. We're hearing from multiple industry professionals at this point that with examples of financing companies, absolutely shutting you down for a 10% profit rate on business. And we're being told across the board that it should be 15-15 minimum. So how do you justify that? Is that because you know that's what
I feel that commercial claims should be 15 to 20% O&P. Residential, it's always been a standard of 10 and 10, which is 20%, right?
Set by who?
Yeah, exactly. That's, like I said, industry standard. I don't even know if it can be classified as industry standard. And who said it? I don't know. We'd have to go back and figure that out. It seems to be what people, over the course of time, have, contractors have agreed to and accepted. If every one of you fought 10%, we'd be talking about it now. But no, you accept it, right? So where does the issue lie?
Isn't that kind of what appraisal is what we're supposed to accept?
It's appraising the amount of loss and what's reasonably necessary to bring, to put the property back to pre-loss condition within the policy limits and terms of the policy.
As a professional appraiser on the contractor side, have you seen carriers be objective like that?
You have to make your arguments. No one gives you something. Here for free. Take 20%. No one gives you anything. You have to fight for it. That's why you're an appraisal. You're fighting for something you don't agree with. That's why you hire PAs, because you're fighting for something you don't agree, because you don't want to take the $7,000 offer on the $120,000 claim. Yeah, you have to fight for it.
What?
So, I wish it could be legislative, but it's not, you know? Go ahead.
How does a contractor, contractors pick their appraiser? In other words, I mean, if you believe in what the damages are, or do you not believe in the damages? I mean, why would we hire one appraiser versus another appraiser?
You go by referrals, you go by some appraisers, like, you know, you can't do work for Allstate because you're in a compliment to Allstate, things like this. You go to associations, you look for people's certification, you ask, have you had good results with this appraiser from your fellow contractors? That's how you do it.
And the reason I'm asking, you know, it depends your background, okay? If you're on the insurance side, you know, you're gonna believe everything what an insurance company taught you. If you're coming from a public adjuster, you're coming and says, yes, you can. There, you know, I believe it.
Right.
In different areas.
Right, so there's differing opinions. And I came from an IA background and things. I referred Bob Harmon and Pekin and sends me appraisals and stuff like that. And again, both sides call the other side the dark side. I've never worked for a carrier where somebody wrote something down and be like, don't pay. Get as low as you can. Don't do, they're not silly enough to put something like that in writing. There's nothing like that. All right, it's more systemic about, I can go into different things about bonuses around Christmas time and all this other stuff, but the issue is, if you're doing appraisal for either side, you should be able to work for either side, because why? You're independently evaluating the loss and coming up with a number. Doesn't matter who you work for. But I know what you're saying, that people won't get called back to work again if they write too liberally.
Just to give you an example, I called in an appraiser and I have an interview and he says, you know what, I don't feel it. You know what, I ain't gonna hire you, you know, because I feel it. You know, I know that there's damages, but I can't get him to understand.
So the appraiser said, I won't take this job on?
Well, I don't hire them because they don't understand.
They don't exude confidence.
They don't understand. They don't understand the project to begin with.
Okay.
And they're looking at one-sided. They're looking at, their background is more of an
They're
carrier background.
I understand. Absolutely, and you're gonna find that. And that's just something you have to weed through, right? Yes, sir, with the stylish hat.
Are you familiar with, have you seen in your appraisal on the study from the National Association of Home Builders regarding general contractor appraisal?
Listen, I've seen a myriad of things presented to me as to why they should get 25% or 33% overhead profit in a thing. As an umpire, I'm obligated to look at evaluate everything that's presented to me. Certainly something from professional association that has some credibility will have more weight than someone who just says, I think you should pay it because. All right, so if you have those things, absolutely, you want to put those forward. So, all right. Yes, ma'am.
Have you argued or won that space stacking should be paid for when the policy doesn't have
Okay, no winning an appraisal, there's just resolution. So there's no like, haha, I got you and I beat you on this one, because you see the person again. Right. But yeah, but, and then what was the second part on what?
I'm just asking if you think that space stacking should be paid for.
Oh, space
If they don't
stacking.
have code coverage, or if you've seen it one.
Okay, so that's an argument that comes up a lot. So the argument usually branches off into two forks. Is there ordinance and law? Can you get a letter from a governing body? No, the homeowners association is not the governing body. For all of you that want to go, because the neighbor lives next to the president of the homeowners association, he's going to get him a letter saying you have to put a tile roof back or whatever, a Luigi tile. All right, so that's not a governing body, right? But they're not a governing body. They're not the ones. I don't know if they actually have to, can they not approve a permit? Do they issue the permit? Okay, well then you make that argument that they kind of bleed over into an association having the okay. And I've seen that only in one neighborhood in Illinois. Small villages where the whole voting base is the homeowners association, they're gonna give them a lot more credence in what they do. But in general, okay, we're speaking in generalities here, not specifics. They're not homeowner associations are not issuing permits, and they're not the governing body. So the letter from them really doesn't discuss. Okay, back to your question about space stacking. So it may not be required under ordinance and law, but it may be required as what? Manufacturer specifications, what's required to put the roof on, right? So that's where I would make my argument, as opposed to ordinance and law. They might not even have a element policy, right? So those type of things. Yes, I've seen things that should have been paid for in appraisal. I've argued things that I never thought I'd get and I got. I brought in coverage in appraisal that shouldn't have been done.
If that's the only argument though, do you think that it's worth taking?
Depends on how much you're paying for appraisal. And half the umpire fee if needed. So that's an accounting question at that point, as opposed to what my feelings are on the subject. Go ahead, sir. No, I don't agree with that. I think the appraiser should have a copy of the policy. I think the umpire should have a copy of the policy. And I'll tell you why. Early on, I was involved with some appraisals, and there was a guy doing it for years. He's now in Florida. And the issue is, he might know from the policy, after reading the policy, that there's a $5,000 limit for lead and asbestos, right? And it tells you, listen, what's your first name? Victor. You're gonna work this out, Victor. Tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give you $50,000 towards lead. Will that satisfy you? And then I only pay for half the roof. But you're getting $50,000 for lead. But what you don't know is there's a $5,000 limit. And every award is subject to policy provisions and conditions of policy. And you got this wonderful award, but it's $45,000 short because it'll never get paid. So why shouldn't you have a copy of the policy? Why shouldn't you get a certified copy of the policy? As PAs, Kevin touched on it, always do a POL, right? Every POL not asked for a carrier is already considered what? A hostile proof of loss. That's the way they look at it. Because it tolls and does other things, and it puts them on their heels for time frames. And second of all, get the copy of the policy. The policy is the roadmap to the claim. How in the world, there's not an attorney in here that would take the case to court without getting a copy of the policy? Why would you do it? You're arguing blind. Get a certified copy of the policy, and that'll be the next hiccup that you're going to get in the Midwest and around the country. Unless you're an attorney demanding a certified copy of the policy, and you're working for Emeralds, who's doing claims for State Farm or something, they're going to fight you on even giving you a certified copy of the policy, which is ridiculous. It's a roadmap to the claim. It's a necessary document for the insured to navigate their claim. So, all right. And that's it. The lights went out and I still kept talking. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Mr. Bush wasn't able to attend today, so we're gonna have Mr. Chip Merlin.
If y'all got prayers for Stephen, y'all can go ahead and throw him up. He is said it's the worst he's ever been sick in his entire life.
Oh,
God say a word for him and let him go.
And Chip's topic is to be rather than seen. Becoming authentically best in the property claims business with others of a similar mindset.
Is, in case I forget, anybody who would like a copy of the signed book, I'll be out there. Anthony will get it for me as he gets this set up. I'd be happy to sign it, for you.
All right.
Get started in a second, but this is kind of an interesting, for me, it's, I get a chance to speak all over the place. Actually, I did double book. There was 4 different events I was supposed to be at, and I triple booked for a little bit, so. But I made a promise to Cal that I would show up. And it's an important promise to keep. To be rather than seen. And when I called Cal, I had this topic in my mind, but I also spoke to him, what is it that you want the audience to get out of, this event? And then I thought about it, and it's becoming. And I think even that word's important. Authentically, I think that word's extraordinarily important in today's day and age where it's so easy not to be authentic. Best in the property claims business with others of a similar mindset. So I picked this topic, really important. Who here has seen me give a speech before? All right, so if you're on your cell phone, I'm gonna make you an audience participant, right? What's your name? Joseph Miyahi. Nice to meet you, Joe. All right, we're gonna keep you right here with us for just a little bit before we get done. You haven't seen me give a speech before. What do you do for a living? You are? From where? Indiana? What part? I love Indiana. I love Columbus, Indiana. Northwest. Who do you represent? Insurance companies, policyholders, or you're just here for the hell of it? You do both. What do you do now? Okay. Really? That's fantastic. And that's one of the things Cal made a point of, is to make certain that there's going to be a lot of different people here with a lot of different interests and backgrounds. So I started out with Cal. I've known Cal for a while. And if there's one person who kind of epitomizes this, and I think why Cal wanted to have this, is that Cal has gone through a lot of changes. And the Cal student that I knew a decade ago, 15 years ago, is a lot different. His wife's saying, yeah, he is a lot different than he used to be. And Cal's gone through a lot, but I think he epitomizes a lot of what the title to this is about. And when I talked to him, there was a different Cal Spoon out there than before. It's one who's really learning, one who's softening a little bit, one who's maybe a little more wise because of experience, and one who's taking a leadership role and trying to better himself doing it. I really heard that from you, Cal, and I wanted to say that. And the important part is that every single person here can do this, and our roles change as we go through this. And Cal wanted to really push, about the learning aspects of it. And I learned a lot just from listening to Dennis. Are you here? I don't know if he's still in the room. But Dennis was here this morning. Even listening to Dennis this morning, I learned just so much, from it and his speech. But Cal, I appreciate you coming here because I think what you have to say about this is important. Cal will be the first to say, if he can do it, anybody can do it. To be rather than seen. It's something to really think about, really, really hard. And I, to be rather than seen, because we let our egos get in the way, and we're so afraid. As humans, we're just afraid of change and not, looking at ourselves honestly. And when we do, it's, geez, I'd rather think about something else. And so I try to get it down to brass tacks. You know, who would you hire if you had the problem, whatever trade you're in? You know, from my friend who's the attorney back there, who I just met, who's looking at this, thing, who would you hire? It was $1 million at stake and it was your mother to go do the claim. Who would be the best person to represent that? Or who is the absolute best in your profession representing somebody? And whether you're a public adjuster, whether you're a contractor building something, no matter what you are, it's a heck of a question. Who would you hire? Would you hire yourself? You know, if you had to look at yourself in the mirror, would you hire yourself? Now, chances are there's nobody who's really the best at everything we do. How many public adjusters we have in here? Put your hands up, come on. Public adjusting is one of the most difficult things to do for a living. It absolutely is. Let's go and start with it. You have to know all the different insurance policies and what they mean, and all the various coverage terms. You have to. If you can't do that, you can't be a great public adjuster. So you have to know all that. Oh, but we also have to know the laws and the regulations and the rules from each state that govern those particular insurance policies as well. And we can't practice law while doing it with arguing with who? What's your name? Danny. So, you can't do that because you can't practice law. And so how do you argue with the insurance company about the laws and regulations that are interpreting the insurance policies without practicing law? It's tough, isn't it? And you can learn techniques about it so you don't do that. But it's not just you have to know the insurance policies and laws and regulations as a public adjuster. Oh my God, you got to know construction too. Not just construction and how to, do it. You have to know, Kevin Danter's is going to talk later about OSHA and the rules and the regulations about it, the building codes that go along with it, manufacturer specifications. How does the labor go ahead and do these things? And you have to understand that completely to really come up and get with the right estimate, or at least be able to criticize somebody in your firm who's doing it. Let's keep going. Oh, you got contents as well too. Really? Is it commercial contents that you have to know about? Is it personal property? How do you value Chip Merlin's old beat up, and I forgot to get it polished within the last couple of months, I can tell, shoot, it just got burnt up. And what are the arguments that you make for that? And how do you learn to make those arguments? How do you do a business interruption claim? Have you done a business interruption claim? Really? How big of a business interruption claim have you done? Have you done one for a hotel, which is a lot different than a manufacturing, facility that might have one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast? And how do you do that? And how do you oversee the accountants that are doing it to make certain that they know what they're doing? There's a lot to being a public adjuster, and we're not even done yet. The interpersonal skill set to negotiate, talking with people, and I think that's part of what Neil was talking about. How do you win the other side over to what you believe is the right amount that the claim should settle for? And all these things and all these skills can be learned. But would you hire yourself to do it? Or would you hire somebody else? To be rather than seen. Because most of us, when we look in the mirror, that's how we look there, but the mirror looks a little bit different. I would suggest it's just because it's really difficult for all of us to be honest with ourselves about where we're at. Sometimes being honest hurts, or we're too forgiving. And I threw down this too. Sometimes to be the best doesn't mean you're going to make the most money. Wow, really? It doesn't matter. You certainly need to make enough money, but it's not all about the greed, about being the best that you can be. Eventually you're not going to take that money home. We all learn that. But when you sell yourself on money to clients, to customers, no matter who you are, whether it's an attorney, oh, I've got these great results, we're the best. We're the biggest law firm. We have more claims. We've done, really? and we're gonna get you the best result. Anybody can say that in this day and age. Anybody on the internet. And you think that really the public can't start to figure this out? Like they're stupid? They're just like you and me. Come on, they can figure this out. And so eventually what we're seeing on the advertisement that's played out on television and all this kind of stuff is a very distrusting, clientele for all of us, no matter what, place we're at. Because we're there starting to discern that what these people are selling us is a bunch of bunk. Because people can say anything on the internet. I picked this because it was really important, I thought. We all know this story of the Wizard of Oz. Sometimes when you sit down and you think and you analyze it, though, you start to come up with some different points from it. Dorothy and her team, forget the team's Cal, were looking where to go. And they were looking for the wizard who has all the answers and stuff like that. And eventually they find out that the wizard who's up there talking about all this stuff, is just a guy behind there. He's really a pretender. It's a mythical, magical thing that really doesn't exist. It's a fantasy that he created for everybody else to follow. He's really not to be rather than seen when you pull it away. I want you to think about that. Our law firm, it got so bad because our firm, I just point blank, guys, our vision, our goal is try to be the best, period. It doesn't mean one person's the best. As a group, as a team, we're the best. And so we have different people with different skill sets within the firm that we're trying to build, to be contenders, not pretenders. We trademark that. Because I think it's so important, and especially in this day and age where, again, people can see anything rather than to be. Results matter. They do matter. And I would suggest to you that the contenders eventually get the results. And that's what they're paying people to do. I was part of this team. Judge selected who they thought were the best attorneys in South Florida. I'm not from South Florida, I was from Tampa. I actually felt like an outsider because I was from Tampa. I was selected as the insurance coverage counsel for the class. And we couldn't find you know where the best collapse attorney is? That for buildings that fall down? Out of Philadelphia. And so we made him part of the team too, or at least the judge selected him as part of the team. And we got back over $1 billion in a settlement that took 11 months. That most people thought was going to take years. As a matter of fact, we were being chastised to begin with. Why can you sue all these individuals? These people caused the problem themselves. That was how it all started out. $1 billion, the case is done. We have a little victory celebration in December, but I learned so much from working with individuals who, in their own little subspecialties, were really the best in the business. And we all got a better result because we worked together so well as a team. We also had a judge that drove the heck out of us too. Even driving the very best. It was one of the best experiences I ever had. But I would suggest for you, where's Dennis? He's not here. I wish he was here. So I want to say something. If you listen to Dennis really carefully, what Dennis is really good at is building a team. Dennis even said, if I heard him right, he said he was honest with me. He says, I got out of public adjustment. I couldn't stand it anymore. And he went back and started coaching tennis. Then Hurricane Irma came and he got back into it. But then what he did is he started advertising. Now he's building a team. And I think for people that are at the head of their organizations, I listened to him carefully. What he was really talking about, hey, I'm the leader of this band of people, and off we go. And I better have really good skill sets about dealing with people and motivating them, training them. Because there's skill in that. But I don't know if Dennis would die. Dennis put his hand, where is he?
Vince.
Vince! I keep saying Vince. Vince, are you here?
He went to go eat.
Don't tell him I called him Dennis.
One of his
It's
teammates.
our big secret. Or when he comes in, says, hey, Dennis. All right. But no, I was listening harder and harder to him. I go, wow, this guy's built a whole business, but he hasn't been public adjusting for that long. Come on. I mean, it takes a while to get really good at something like this. It just doesn't happen overnight. You know, I mean, years and years. That's okay. It's one step at a time. We go down the yellow brick road we're going to talk about. I suggest that public adjusting and contracting are not commodity products. That the people that get hired, you know, have different results. And a lot of times it's based upon, yes, the skill sets. I would suggest a lot of other things too, culture, character, things that sometimes we don't talk about. Neil talked about it briefly earlier, and Cal's been talking about it a lot, which I really appreciate. You know, but they are not commodity, neither is being an attorney. It is not a commodity product. John Morgan, or Rigger's Law. John and I were classmates in law school. I know John, and I have no problem talking about John. He would laugh, check, you're out there. Yeah, John, because we're the biggest, we're the baddest. But John, you know, how many attorneys really do this for a living, this little subspecialty? Now he's hiring more, and that's fantastic, that's good. But it is not a commodity product. Public adjusting is not a commodity product. Being a great appraiser is not a commodity product, but it can be learned. We're going to go through some of how you get to learn to do this too. But the bottom line is who the policyholder hires, who the client hires, whoever people hire in this business can have an impact on the result, period. And so who would you hire? Would you hire somebody just based upon advertising? Or would you try to hire the best? You know? And each of these individuals going through on an individual basis were completely flawed characters. Absolutely. You know? One felt he didn't have a heart. One felt he wasn't educated. One felt he didn't have any courage. The other didn't even know how to plan to go where to go. How do you get back home? You know, we all learned from this particular, it's a great story. My team up in Chicago, I wish they were all here, but they walked out the door. Mike Duffy's flying back from Los Angeles. He gave a speech there yesterday. But Mike Duffy was a partner in a significant insurance defense firm before he left. And at SU, and he's been doing this as long as I have. We're now in our 60s. At SU, has more cases about appraisal here in Illinois than any other attorney that I know. Is frankly just one of the best about the standard insurance policy in 165 line. Christina Phillips in my firm was selected as the chairperson for the Property Insurance Law Subcommittee of the American Bar Association, and she's a policyholder attorney. You know, usually dominated by insurance defense attorneys, has the respect of her peers. And so but it was just Chip Merlin up here. But any of these one individuals, I guarantee you, they would not be as good as what they are as a team. And so we get through here, it's this team that's so important. Hey everybody, let's give it up for Vince, all right? Man, I was talking about you weren't even here. You left for my speech. You didn't even know what I said, thank God. But everybody's going to remember your name from here on out.
Dennis.
In Chicago, I thought about teams since we're up here in Chicago. I just love the Bears from this time. You know, everybody in Chicago, just an iconic team, the Bears. One of my favorite football players of all time, Wilbur Marshall, you know, linebacker from Florida. I went to the University of Florida, was on that team. Was well. Wilbur just epitomized the passion that they had and the dedication they had, and just iconic figures that we. But I would suggest again, working as teams is something any individual can do and make yourself better. And so Vince, when you weren't here, I was talking about you're developing a team of people. It's not just you, which is an important skill set. So who would you hire? Who would you hire? You know, certainly somebody who's educated, that knows what they're doing. You want to hire people that are leaders, because leaders get respected by the other side. They send you the insurance policy, okay? They send you the insurance policy because they have respect, you know, for you. You know, you want people of high character. We talked about that in the public adjuster thing earlier, you know, today, which I really appreciate. The conflicts of interest, the fiduciary obligations. Now, are you gonna be really upfront and honest with somebody about what the situation is at the particular time, even if it's not to your economic interest to do so? But you're taking care of who? Policyholder. For all of us on the policyholder side, it's the policyholder side. If you're here with the insurance company, you would be taking care of the insurance company. But I always remind everybody this: who's the insurance company supposed to be taking care of? Policyholder. You know? You want people that are experienced. You want people that actually have results. You should ask about that. What are the results you have in these things? What are your experiences? And delve into it. And it's going to take a while to develop that. People with really high skill sets. You know, how good are they? How good are they dealing with people on the particular issue that's out there? We're going to talk about that. And I would suggest all of us are better at this when we're doing it as a team with people who are of like-minded values, like-minded culture. They want the same like-minded result. Angelica, how many people do you have from your firm here? Is she here? How many? 14 people. Congratulations for having your whole team up here. I just thought about that when thinking about that. That's good. You know? I mean, it's, you know, I bet those people, all I guess she has y'all's back. Y'all are up here working together, learning and stuff. You know, it's really great. That's how you build a team, because in the bottom line, the policyholders want somebody that they can trust. You know, eventually somebody's going to hire you if they trust you or not. We were talking about this, you know, somebody said, you know, is to keep, the way the contracts are written is just to make sure your name's on the check, you know, and there's even this trust there almost in the start of it. But I talked with a public adjuster yesterday in New Jersey, because the New Jersey Department of Insurance is coming out with this thing saying people's contracts for public adjusters are wrong because it doesn't spell out at any given time during the entire representation, if they were cancel or terminate the contract, how the fee would be determined. So one public adjuster told me, Chip, I just put in there, you can fire me at any time at will, and you owe me nothing. He said it's happened a couple times over the last 20 years, but you know, that's what it's gonna come down to. They can just walk, and that's just the way it is. He said, I take a leap of faith on that, you know, but it's worked out for me. I also suggest he does a lot of good for his clients, has really great interpersonal skill sets. His clients know that he's there, and he takes care of them the right way too. He's not signing up 1,000 people, you know, and just advertising, let's roll them on in. Let's just go advertising, get as much money as we can, and we'll farm them out to everybody else to do the work, you know, which is becoming more and more prevalent in some of the public adjusting trades and some other trades as well too, including attorneys, which is not necessarily good. No, it's not good at all. It's not necessarily, it's just bad. So we talked about, what are your credentials on all this? Because really, when you line them all up and down, you're talking about credentials. Credentials matter. And I think Cal, this goes back to Cal, let's talk about education. First thing we gotta do is learn. Where are we gonna learn? And skill sets, leadership reputation, experience, results, and character. That's all thing, let's talk about education. Policy forms are the first thing. You have to know policy forms. I would suggest even contractors today have to know policy forms. Public adjusters sometimes come back, why does a contractor have to have a policy? I say, are you crazy? Of course the contractor needs to know what the policy is. What's the deductible? How are they gonna pay for the deductible? How are they gonna finance this to begin with? Number two, what's dwelling aid, you know, or the aid limits? We've got a huge mitigation factor here. You want to make sure you're not going to take all the money away in mitigation. How do you go rebuild it when it gets left over? You know, with all the insurance coverage gaps out there, I would think a contractor would want to know if you're going to get paid on an ACV basis for your roof or not versus RCV or on a schedule. Absolutely. A discussion you might want to have with the policyholder. How are we going to get this paid for if it's only an ACV versus RCV? You know, but everything I'm talking about, public adjusters need to know really well. And you have to know these policy forms, and you have to read the policies because they're changing at a more fast rate than ever before. It's not just that they have lots of changes They're changing more, even from company to company. And it's hard to keep up with. So there's two places I would suggest, if you're a public adjuster and you aren't subscribed to one of these two, you're not keeping up. Simple as that. Either IRMI, International Risk Management Institute, talks about policy forms, where they come from all the time, or the FCNS bulletins from the National Underwriter. Okay? And they talk about the changes, where the changes come from. Either IRMI or the FCNS. You have to keep up. Those are the two major organizations, and my law firm is subscribed to them both. Because they're always coming up. Of course, I tell you, Cal, where else do people learn about policy forms? Oh, public adjuster boot camp. But I can't just look up public adjuster boot camp, you know, all the time. Maybe you can. I look at my blog. You get to that.
YouTube.
We also have our attorneys who subscribe to the Insurance Academy. It's amazing to me how few insurance claims individuals understand what the product is that's being sold by their underwriting departments and what they're supposed to do. Insurance policy is a product versus what they say it does. Okay? So the underwriters go out and say, oh, well, there's this product, we got to go and sell this. We need to sell more, ordinance of law coverage. What's ordinance of law coverage? They go through the whole bit. So the claims department comes back and they start to get really smart, talk to some insurance defense attorneys, maybe at the most recent, PLRB conference, and they come up with a new defense that says, well, we're not paying for building permits because those are really increases in coverage because of law and ordinance. What are you talking about, man? That's stupid. You got to do those all the time anyway. No, that's the way it is. Well, then why do you sell a law and ordinance product coverage that doesn't pay for it? You tell me it's not paid for anyway? It's just little things like that we find if you go to the Insurance Academy and you subscribe, and I think you get a whole yearly subscription for $99, $139 in group or something, and they're teaching agents primarily what the products are that are for sale and how they're supposed to work. And they have all kinds of things in there that are really, really good. Great classes about insurance policy interpretation and coverage for a relatively inexpensive price. And from people that are in the industry, that are writing the insurance policies, that this is what we meant them to be to begin with. A great place to go. Reference books. Of course, I took mine. We have a whole thing, yes, and then I'll assign you, everybody, as I said, we can sign it at the end. I wouldn't call that a reference book, though, but there's other reference books. I even pick up claims manuals. If you get a claims manual, get it. This National Flood Insurance Claims Manual from 2021 has a great page talking about all the costs that go into what a replacement cost is. And they start listing one of the things has to do about acquisition costs. And they have a whole page on it. And this is out of the National Flood Insurance Claims Manual. And they talk about the setup fees and the taxes and everything else, the extra shipping costs, that might go on. And they essentially say all acquisition costs go in to determine replacement costs. Now that's out of the National Flood Claims Manual. But you might run into when you have an issue, when you're adjusting a loss, where the insurance company says, well, we're not going to pay for that. That's not part of replacement cost. It's like, well, let's go back to Adjuster 101. Even the National Flood Insurance Program, the most stingy program that there is in the United States, pays for all these acquisition costs. You see how it works, If you got a claims manual, or how the product works and cosmetic exclusion. They said, well, we're not paying for cosmetic damage. Well, you don't have an exclusion for it. And if you did want an exclusion for an endorsement, here's a copy of what one looks like for a cosmetic damage exclusion, and therefore you can make that argument, but you can't make it here. And so what I'm telling you, and I hope what you learn, is you have to know the product. And there's sources and reference materials out there so you can make these arguments that others are making, as well too. Skill sets. Man, you gotta know construction estimating. You better know the ins and outs of construction estimating if you're in this business. I mean, you just have to, And a lot of times construction estimating, people forget the first thing you have to know is construction specifications. These estimating software systems you have to absolutely know, but they don't teach you what is required to actually do the construction. But there is an institute where you can go to Construction Specifications Institute. You can even get certified, as this writing specifications, and so at least you know. And they have a list of all the various things that a contractor might do in various types of construction. Some people might say if you go to an appraisal on a major loss, why wouldn't you pull out the specifications that somebody's gonna have to go bid on? In the real life, this is what goes on. And don't kid yourself, when you start doing higher commercial work, especially governmental commercial work, they aren't looking at Xactimate estimates. There's gonna be this long bid out specification process and everybody's gotta comply with it and they bid on that. And there's gonna be an engineer that's gonna sign off on whether or not it's been proper, with an architect probably most of the time. And why shouldn't those costs be in there as well? Because they actually put them in specifications. What's that cost? How much it's gonna be? That's what the entire, cost of the construction project is gonna be. You start to learn about soft costs as well too. How's it gonna get financed? Is there gonna be a lawyer that's gonna be needed to watch over this, especially in condominium losses? Things like that go on that people miss because they don't know the specifications. They never even make it to the estimate. Kevin, where are you? You walk out too? Now I know.
You sure about the name?
Kevin Danders, back here. Yeah, for a year we had, I got my OSHA.
There he is.
There he is. He's walking back. I told you he'd be part of this.
I'm here.
But he's going to be speaking tomorrow or today?
Correct. Tomorrow, 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock. One of the crazy things I tell, insurance company adjusters will come back and say, we're not going to put in for any of these OSHA requirements. Really, why not?
Well,
And they look at me because they're not going to do them. Really. But they're supposed to do them. They're required to do them. It's legal to do them. So you're going to tell me that you are going to go in front of a judge and tell the judge it's okay to put in an illegal contract. And it's okay to do it illegally and not follow the law. You're going to tell a judge that right there, you're not going to follow the law. But we've gone so far down this, we almost had the entire side's, estimate strictly because they were making these arguments that they didn't put in these OSHA things. Which you would think the first thing you would have to do is at least make a legal contract that's binding. You've got to know these things.
Right.
Because if the OSHA requirements aren't there, you're breaking the law. And as a lawyer, I can't tell you can't break the law. I mean, what lawyer's going to tell you that? Judge, a motion in limine to keep the Insurance Defense Council from arguing this estimate because it's breaking the law. Why, Mr. Merle? Because he didn't include all this and he knows it. He can't say that this is a good faith estimate when he knows it's breaking the law. Judge, that's pretty interesting. What do you have to say? You're breaking the law by making this argument. No attorney can break the law. You made that argument in my courtroom. Shuts them up pretty fast. But it's the same thing. So you have to know OSHA requirements too. You've got to know them inside and out. Yes?
The argument I see the most frequent is they argue that the OSHA line items are already built into Xactimate, which are in other words, already built into each line item.
Well, they have to show you, and you have to look at the white paper, and you have to know then how to use Xactimate for that. And a lot of the Xactimate trainers and certification people that we have as experts will tell you they're not, that you have to add them in. Okay? And then they go, well, how do you know? If you really get down to it, because we've been down this before, how do you know? Well, we just assume that they're following the law, but you don't know. No. Why should we follow Xactimate at all then? You really get down to it, in terms of pricing. But you do have to know Xactimate. Who has your Xactimate certification? Good for you. Good for you. What's the downside to your client being Xactimate certified? Nothing. Why wouldn't everybody who's a public adjuster worth their salt have Xactimate certification if you're doing, Xactimate? What does it take, a day? What's it take, a day for the first one? 2 days?
You can do all three of them in a day each if you wanted to, but it'd be a long day.
Be a long day. And you might not get everything out of it. I know that Andrew Behrens is,
Got some online classes.
and you got some online classes too for it. But, you just have to know this, but what's the downside of being certified? At least you're certified by the entity who's got it, yes.
So there's an attorney named Larry Bache, I think you know him.
He's in my firm.
He states that if you're Xactimate certified and Hague certified, you can put that on your signature on your signature line, and there's a good chance you'll get a desk adjuster with more authority than just a typical desk adjuster.
That might be true, but you also, no matter who the adjuster is on, suppose it says, and this is part of the credentials, Steve, it says CPCU, licensed general contractor, da-da-da-da-da, and you have all those things underneath your name. Now, not too many of them, but ones that the insurance industry would recognize, holy cow, what's the downside to your client? Nothing. I think one of the best ones of all time, talking about people who've changed, and talk about a person who's really changed, is Jack Hank's old partner, but Dave Skipton was screaming, hollering, wrote the worst letters I've ever seen. I yelled at him, "You're gonna kill my case. What are you doing?" And I think he looked inside, and he's changed a lot. And he asked, "Well, what would you do if I was you? I'd go get a CPCU." And I asked him. I said, I was at about a year ago. Jake, since you got a CPCU, what do you find? How do people treat you? Mr. Skipton. And they call back, and he has discussions with them. So your point being, credentials mean something, okay? Because they give you, the other side will recognize it right away. This person is passionate enough and cares about their work that the education they got is certified by another organization. And it's an organization that my boss has been trying to get me to get that certification from too. How many people actually work for the insurance company? I'm not talking about a W-2 employee of an insurance company. It's going to be fewer and fewer because they're third partying out. Everybody's an employee of an independent contractor, but almost everything, if you want to move up, they'll tell you, go get a CPCU designation, go get an AIC designation. It's a calling card. If you get pegged in State Farm, they want to see CPCU at the end. They really want to see people that are dedicated in the industry to at least be trained with those credentials. And to the extent you've got them, what's the downside to your client? What's the downside to your career? Nothing. Nothing at all. It's great training. SIMSOL, you got to use that. RS means, because you got to know RS means to an extent, especially on commercial construction. Go get your remediation certifications. You need to know more, especially in an area like Chicago, where we still have a lot of fires of older buildings. And the fire science for smoke has changed a lot. One more time, the fire science with respect to especially the dangerous smoke has changed a lot. We're a lot more knowledgeable today than what we used to be. And a lot of small little fires really are deserving to have been completely gutted today because the buildings are really unsafe for people to move back into those, especially where there's smoke, soot, and ash behind walls, is not good, especially for older people and younger people who are going to live there for a long time. It is dangerous. And so I would suggest those fires that everybody's thinking are smaller are a lot bigger today. All that's changed within the last 20 years. There's no downside to being a licensed contractor. Pat Garrett is a great example. He's a young guy, his father just died, second generation public adjuster, and he asked me, Chip, what can I do? My dad died, I'm concerned. I'm not going to be getting as much business and all this, and what can I do? And I said, go get a credential from the insurance industry, from the institutes. He did, he got AIC, and he got a general contractor's license. Few people got it. He said, I'm also a licensed general contractor. Bring that to the table when we're negotiating. It just helps his credibility completely, you know, and he's done a few buildings, not many, but he's done a few with really experienced contractors, so he doesn't mess it up. But at least one got the education. We can talk about skill sets, but I think one of the best is you've got to be creative in telling your story to sell your claim. And what's your theory of loss, and how do you do this? I'm going to get to Steve in a second, because I think Steve Patrick, I know Cal's, you know, got his boot camp. But this, how do you present the claim in a manner that is going to be selling and accepted by the insurance industry, is completely important. Why make an enemy when you can have a friend? You know, most claims adjusters get taught that the best claim is a what kind of claim? Closed claim. What can I do to help make your numbers, especially reduce your pendings to get this done? You know, make it completely backed up so your supervisor's not on your back. You know, and you got a happy customer that they don't think is overpaid, but paid fully and fairly and quickly. Man, negotiation. I'm not the best at it. In my firm, I'm working hard. God knows I'm working hard because I am not a patient individual. Denise was giving me grief yesterday because just I interrupted somebody who was taking just like forever to make an introduction of themselves. Jim, you can't do that. It was my lack of patience that really created that. Let them talk forever if they want to talk about themselves. And that's part of what Chris Voss talks about in this book. Make certain that you listen to the other side. One of the first things in communication. Repeat what they said so there's no misunderstanding. Voss is real good at that. I believe Chris Voss has changed a lot. And he's the guy I'm pushing to right now for most of the training with respect to negotiation. But you've got to be good at negotiation, because if you can't understand and discuss what people have different views on things, at least understand this is what you're saying. You know, you're never going to get to a position where your view is accepted as well. One of the best things, I love listening to Steve Patrick, because no matter what Steve comes to on his learning sessions, I always pick up a tip or two about why don't you look at it this way? And just these aha moments that come up. You teach that all the time in your stuff. You know, let me tell you what goes on out there, and he shares it. Okay, shit, that's a good idea. Thanks, I appreciate it. I gotta pack that one away. Yesterday I was with, in California before I left, Jeff Major was talking about water and water damage that flows through a building. He goes, at the very corner down here low is this little yellow speck and stuff like that. So he said, you know what we're really talking about? How many people here drink coffee? And so he has this picture of, you know, the coffee that you put up. So you have your grounds and you pour water and it comes through. And now look at the coffee afterwards. You know, it's your aha moment. Well, it's the same thing when the water starts through the roof and it goes all the way through. What's coming out? And if we made, I can hear right now, see his mind's working really, really quick, because you're great with visuals. And I think a lot of these visuals that were leading to more creative stuff with the insurance company when you have negotiations with them, well, let's really talk about each of the stuff that the water's going through and what it's carrying. You know, especially whether it's a fire building where the water's gone through and dripped all the way to the bottom. It's got all these carcinogenic materials. Even if it's not a fire building, it's going through all kinds of carcinogenic materials, you know, in there. And really, so this water is just not clean water. What do we do to get taken care of it? And why you have to do invasive, you know, procedures into a building to find what all the damages are. But I just love the visual aspect that was brought to it and why we need to use visuals more often. I think, Steve, your quips and using those visuals can help everybody on it. That's the old no. Cal goes, that's Cal. Cal, that's the old Cal, right, Cal? That's the old Cal. I talked to Cal, I swear to God, Cal's like, I think it's, you know, I've been down there, I've done the battles, now I'm starting, you know, doesn't mean you still can't battle, you're still gonna be yourself. A good friend of mine, Rick Freeman, is a member of the Inner Circle, and I had a case one time, says, I just didn't get the result. I didn't think, you know, Rick, the jury just didn't see the passion in me, because I tried to do it your way without, you know, passion, because his whole technique is to have less passion, let the jury kind of figure it out. Rick's had tremendous success. And he said, Chip, some people it just works for and some don't. So you gotta be yourself, but you still have to be able to relate. And there ain't no way you relate to somebody else by flipping them off and having a finger. I've been using this photograph since 2008 in a speech because these interpersonal skill sets are extraordinarily important. You know, for Vince, who was talking about building his team, just building and working with other people on your own team, you've got to have those. Showing the support, because we're all going to come up here and do this together and talk about it, you know? And your friend Luke, who talked about, I was at dinner and I was just amazed. Chip, we used to have these, we took pay up and we'd sit around and talk about your book and stuff. You know, that's how we all started becoming public adjusters. I was amazed somebody would read my book for that. I didn't make it for that at all, but these skill sets that you can do interactive as part of a team with people that are like-minded, you've got to not be this way because people will leave. You'll be all by, who wants to work with somebody in the sandbox who's an asshole? Nobody. You know, why does somebody want to work on the opposite side with an asshole? State Farm person one time, and they said, Chip, we're paying this amount of money because we'd rather pay a gentleman than a jerk. And we'll go all the way to the trial on it. We might lose going to trial, but we're getting done with this thing with you. Congratulations. So I think those skill sets mean something. These credentials speak, AIC, CPCU, for public adjusters, also SPPA. I would suggest that you're also trying to influence the other side, and that's why I put the insurance industries in there. What's in your heart? You know? You know? And I think the leadership and reputation are important. People look for leaders. They want to hire leaders. You know, if you're in your organization, people want to be with leaders that are taking on. But eventually, what do you do to support policyholders? And Doug Quinn, I think I've got up here soon. You know, everybody can help Doug Quinn with American Policyholders Association. What a great thing. United Policyholders. You know, we can take leadership roles there. We can take leadership roles in our own public adjusting organizations or trade organizations. We can set things up and really take a leadership role, and let's talk about how we can work together. For the first time, right, Cal? Let's mend the fracture. That's a leadership role. And then everybody can support people that are doing these great things. Because you want to have people, you know, for character. Why do you do this? Why do you do this? You know, if it's for the money, it's just not going to work too much. You can find something else. And so I've often said, you know, you either got to love what you do or you need to learn to love what you do. I didn't wake up, you know, when I was 5 years old and mentioned, I'm going to become a property insurance lawyer. Eventually, there's a whole story I talk about why I wanted to become a lawyer, but the truth is I became an insurance lawyer because the firm that offered me the job said, we're not going to keep you in a law library forever. This is back in 1981. That's the last thing I wanted to do. I wanted to get the heck out of school, you know? I did well enough in school, I did the research, and I was back there, but sure as heck, I didn't just want to sit around. And in the day, the way you'd be brought up back in the 80s is you'd sit for a year or two in a law library and take these, you know, notes and all that. I wanted to get out there and go do trials. I wanted to go, and so I went to work for a place that, wow, look, I can go out and do this. I learned to love the law, but I didn't love representing the insurance companies. It's just gnawing on me. I could tell right away. And that's come after a few years. I just switched a long, long time before people are jumping into this, you know, area of practice. I mean, there was one time I think I could probably count 10 fingers everybody who did policyholder work. And I love doing it. Doug Quinn. Doug Quinn, in a roundabout way, ended up becoming our client because the law firm that was representing him was going broke up in New Jersey, and Doug all of a sudden became our client. And Doug had been just raked over the coals by the National Flood Insurance Program, and it bothered him so much that he started the American Policyholders Association, which mission is to call out the fraud of the insurance company the same way that happened to him. I mean, he has a calling, a true passion for what he does. If you're around and in talking with Doug and getting to know Doug even better, because I didn't know Doug, so other attorneys in the firm were handling the case. I've only gotten to know Doug afterwards, and the more time I speak with him, it's so deep. He talks about the emotional aspect of the policyholder at their catastrophic loss. And what we need to do to help these people, what the insurance industry needs to do to help people that are similarly situated. And he talks from a point of empathy because he went through it. And I think his speech, he's supposed to speak tomorrow, right?
He's not gonna make it if he's on the first vacation him and Heather had.
It's a great organization. And his message is that you gotta do something when the other side is not being honest. And they're trying to defraud your client. And he's really adamant, passionate about it. Insurance fraud can go both ways. And so he's not, and they talk about change and getting team members. It wasn't working. They weren't getting enough of these claims put together the right way. He went out and hired 5 people that used to be fraud examiners for the insurance department. So now he has professionals that are looking at this rather than himself. Again, building a team with skill sets that are different than what his are to help out, in a passionate way of a group that he's got. I love my sailboat racing. I grew up in a Coast Guard family, always on the water. I grew up sailboat racing. That was just love to be on the water, love to go race a sailboat. And I was 19 years old, my sophomore year of college, and I was reading about this boat that just happened to be named Merlin. And it was built on the West Coast and had just won the Los Angeles to Hawaii race, the Transpac race, and set a record. All-time fastest boat. And the story just intrigued me. It was built by a guy who was a bit of a hippie, and he built a lightweight, ultra lightweight boat that most people said, if you have people go out there and do it, they're gonna get killed. They're gonna drown, the boat's never gonna make it. You need a big, heavier, stronger boat, not a lightweight boat. This guy took on the entire sail design industry and said, no, what floats better, a brick or a ping pong ball? And he built a boat around it, and man, they won. And I said, if I ever had the means, and that boat ever came up for sale, I'd buy it. 40 years later, I did. And so this is after we won, not won, we came third at the end of the Transpac. And it's something about teams that I think are important. And so I even wrote one of the books out there, Mavericks and Merlins, just on the value of teams. You want to talk about that, being with people like-minded, stuff. The truth of the matter, people don't talk about it, but the last time I was in this hotel was after tragic circumstances. We were in the Mackinac race about 4 years ago, and we got in front of a boat. The boat behind us, because they were getting really bad air and slowing down, we're going to shift over a little bit further down. They sent one of their sailors to the back to move their sails out just a little bit, and he was bumped off the back of the boat. The guy drowned. 6 boats, we turned around to look for him, and he went down after a while. It's really cold out there. It's about 60, 62 degrees, and you're not going to last much longer than 45 minutes out in the water. For some reason, his life thing that supposed to pop open didn't work, and he drowned. And so we were supposed to be up at Mackinac Resort, but instead didn't really feel like racing, so we came back, and the Trump guys here put us up for the night. But the truth of the matter is, when you're racing a boat from Los Angeles to Hawaii, the Coast Guard's not going to come out and get you when you're 1,200 miles out there, and your boat's sinking, you're pretty much on your own. And so you got to have the right team, that's with you, no matter what you do. People don't quite think about it that way. You get the wrong team, it's dangerous to your finances and everything else. It can be dangerous to yourself, your culture, how you feel, your character, and everything. And teams need everything. And it's not that teams are going to be always successful, but typically teams can help you do better. And the main part about teams is the support that you can get from one another so that you can be the best you can be. Because we push each other to be that way. Eventually, that's us just before we finished our race to Hawaii. But when I was thinking about this speech, all of us can change to be the best we can. And I think that was the message Cal's trying to get, And I'm proud of you, Cal, because change is hard. And I think I showed that earlier because it's hard to look at yourself and what are you going to do, what am I going to do? I got my own problems I'm working on day after day, Lord knows. Denise is back there saying, Lord knows you need to work harder, Chip. So I get back to the story of the Wizard of Oz, you know. It takes a little bit of belief in yourself. Eventually, that's what came through with Dorothy, you know, at the very end, you know. Remember Glenda? You know, she said this, you've always had the power, my dear. You just have to learn it for yourself, you know. And, you know, so I follow up with this, because we can talk all day long about it, you know. It ain't gonna do much good if you don't do something. You've got to take action. You got to do something when you leave here. Commit to yourself. And what are you going to do? You know, what am I doing right now to be that person? You know, to be the best person in the mirror. Truly looking at yourself. You know, and you got to have a plan. And so people always ask, well, Chip, what should I do? And it's not that hard. What are you really good at? What's your best skill set? And you want to work on that to make it even better. Because that's probably what's attracting people to you right now. And then I also say to people, what are you most afraid of? What's the hardest that you procrastinate? The one that's when you look at yourself, you're almost embarrassed to say it's your problem. And you're afraid to do something. It might be something what Vince, somebody asked a question, did you feel that you're going to be embarrassed by getting up on social media? You know, are you afraid to be a good public speaker? Are you afraid to do something? What is it you're afraid of, you know? That's really not your skill set, and improve on that. Those two things. But make sure you spend 2/3 of your time on what you're really good at, improving that. My name is Chip Merle of the Merle Law Group. I'm licensed in 12 different states. For people who don't know me, hardest one was the California bar. I think if people told me that only 20% of the people who take the California bar would pass, I would never have taken the test. I didn't find that out until I was the night before the test was about to start. But we have a national practice with over 40 people in it. Every single day for just about every single day. Since 2007 or 8, we write a daily blog about property insurance topics. And if you don't subscribe to it, you should subscribe to it, because we talk about stuff that I think are important to contractors, appraisers, insurance company people, to everybody in this business every single day. We get all kinds of different responses back from it, and we have some comments even today about it. My book, Pay Up, is out there. Anthony, where are you? Anthony in the back will help you. If you want me to write a little thing, I'll sign a book. And there's my book, Mavericks and Merlins, that I wrote. Are there any questions? I'm done. If not. Great. Thank you.
All right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and break for lunch. We're gonna take an hour for lunch. What time we got right now? 1:45, so we'll be back in here at 12:50. Lunch is gonna be served here. Just come up this hallway, right, take a left, and we should see it. See you after break. Oh, also, there was an iPhone found in the women's bathroom.